in a world crying out for a top 10 show. John Roca and Matt Nost are here to bring you the top 10. Brought to you by the Schmoes Know. Take it away, boys. Welcome, everybody, to this week's edition, episode, installment, sequel of the top 10 show. It would have to be a sequel, right? Because every week it's a new show.
Yeah, but
it's a new movie.
It would have to be a sequel with the same topic, and we did it over again.
What? No. What do you mean?
Or
There's not
within the same
villain in every movie when you do a sequel?
Yeah, but at the same time, like sequel, we're changing topic every week. So how is that a sequel? Just of the fact that we're doing 10 every week?
Yeah. Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan is different than Star Trek III: The Search for Spock.
Yeah, but at the same time, like after 3, 4, 5, we're already on iteration 200 something. What is that?
It means we're a successful sequel show.
Sure,
We're a great franchise. That's what I say.
Hell yeah.
Anyway.
Let's just populate the countryside with them. You know what I mean?
I-
McDonald's, buy the land, build the studio, new show.
Now we're talking.
Now we are talking.
All the top 10
Now we
shows.
just need the capital and people to think this is a good idea to do.
I got some friends we can talk to, maybe.
Really?
Maybe.
I want to meet those friends. They sound gullible. I got some magic beans for them.
You got a bridge,
Yeah.
a bridge in, was it bridge in Brooklyn you can sell them?
Yeah, not a problem. What was that, sold 2 times?
Swampland?
I believe it was. I believe sold. It's been sold numerous times, but I think one guy sold it at least twice.
What?
Yeah.
The bridge? Brooklyn Bridge?
Brooklyn Bridge.
Sold it twice?
Sold it twice.
One dude.
Numerous people have sold it over the years and gotten caught. You know, because you're just selling nothing.
Wait a minute. This is a real thing?
This is a real thing.
Oh, I thought it was a joke.
No. It's just how gullible there are people that actually fell for that.
What?
The people are dumb.
How do you sell a bridge? Like, how do you even think to sell a bridge?
If you got somebody that's a smooth enough talker, and then on the opposite side you have one of the dumber motherfuckers you're going to run into, you know what I mean? We're talking about, I don't know, longshoremen or something in the 1800s.
Well, how's a longshoreman
late
afford a
1800s.
bridge?
Well, yeah, but if you just sold them, you're buying a piece of this bridge. You get enough, or I think it sold it outright, or whatever.
I can accept pieces of the bridge. I can't accept the entire bridge on a longshoreman's salary.
Look it up. My trivia about scams
I trust you.
involving bridges is very limited.
Yeah, well,
very limited.
I trust your historical knowledge. That's
Sure.
You're a very knowledgeable man on the history of things.
I think we both are. I think we do well
That's
in that
true.
department.
And it'll bleed into our topic today. But anyway, how are you doing?
I'm good. I'm Matt Nost, by the way.
Hi, I'm John Roca. This is the Top 10 show.
This is the top 10 show.
We are coming off 2 monster fucking episodes, 2.5-hour episodes.
Yeah.
Marvel and DC.
We had an ensemble in between.
Oh, we did have an ensemble.
So we had a
between?
regular 90-minute one.
A regular 90-minute.
Yeah.
But yeah, so thanks to Mark Andreyko and Jason Inman for coming on, and I think we enjoyed having guests on the show because we've brought on a guest again for today's show.
That we have.
You know her as the Crusher in the Schmoedown. Maybe she's edited your show if you're listening to this at some point in your life. Maybe you've run into her. Maybe you've enjoyed her on numerous other YouTube shows. But we are incredibly happy to welcome Rachel Cushing to the Top 10 show.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm afraid I have never bought or sold a bridge, so I had nothing to contribute to that part of the conversation.
Have you ever heard that story?
It sounds vaguely familiar and honestly not that far-fetched.
Really?
It doesn't.
No, not
No.
really.
You can
feel
sell
like
an idiot anything.
gullibility is definitely
Think about
plausible.
snake oil salesmen.
Yeah, true.
Literally drove town to town and was like, this thing will cure. What do you got? 'Cause
Yeah.
It's everything. It is everything. And people fell for that hook, line, and sinker for a long time.
People fall for a lot of things. We want to believe.
We want to believe.
We
Yeah.
want
That's
to
the
believe,
key.
right?
Exactly.
Wait till they come up with that one pill that helps you lose 30 pounds. Just take this one pill. You'll lose 30 pounds in one day. Yeah, they'll sell it. They'll make millions by the time
my
they
God. How much of that is just you sitting on a toilet? You know what I mean? 30 pounds? That's got to be all of it. Your body's just pushing everything out. You clear yourself out. Didn't John Wayne die with like impacted bowels or something? He had like 10 pounds of crap in him or 15 pounds
dead,
of crap.
Pilgrim.
Exactly.
Can't pass this stone.
Oh, that's great. That's like the animatronic Hall of Presidents version. That's in the amusement park, top 10 amusement park. We'll have that off Main Street right when you walk in.
Right next to Elvis. Right next to Elvis dying on
With
the toilet.
Inman on a Rushmore of one. Last week.
Yeah, Jason Inman put himself on the Mount Rushmore.
Episode, he's like, so I'm on the Mount Rushmore. He's like, you know what? I got to respect the balls. I do.
He nominated himself.
No, really?
You don't nominate.
Yeah,
yourself
back
for
in your
that kind
face,
of
Edmund.
thing.
That's right.
Back in your face.
Rachel's a competitive one. If you guys know Rachel.
You got to earn that.
There
shit.
you go. See? She knows. She understands how the world works. Not like Team Action walking in thinking everything should be handed to them, those little babies.
Nope, never.
Anyway.
How you been?
Yeah,
What's
how are you?
new?
What's going on?
I'm good. I'm very excited to talk about this list of movies. Now, you picked this because of
we picked
Darkest Hour?
Yeah, Darkest
Yeah.
Hour is coming out with Gary Oldman playing Winston Churchill, which, but as we're recording this, I'm going to see tomorrow night and do a review for Collider on Friday. So I'm excited to see it because I'm a massive Winston Churchill fan and a Gary Oldman fan.
Nice.
And from the first picture that was released like almost a year this time last year, I've been excited to see this movie because he disappears into the makeup and into the body cast that they did for him. And then all the buzz out of all the festivals has been that this is a fantastic film that will be nominated for Best Picture.
Yeah, I
So-
can actually attest to that. I did get to see a guild screening of it a
nice.
couple weeks ago, and yeah, like you won't know it's Gary Oldman. I was
Perfect.
floored, and I have to give a shout out to. I think Ben Mendelsohn should be considered in the
wow.
Oscar race as well. He plays King George, and I thought that he was fantastic, and I think it's Joe Wright's best work since Atonement. So I can't wait to hear what you think about it. So.
Atonement's a tough film for me.
Oh yeah,
Haven't seen it.
Yeah?
Haven't seen
It's
it.
not your thing.
It's every award season.
Yeah.
10 to 15 movies come out, and they're like, these are all in consideration, and I watch 10 to 12.
Oh, okay.
I never make it to all of them. And that year, Atonement was one of the ones which just like, I've seen so many, I can't see them all.
Saoirse Ronan.
What's that?
Saoirse Ronan.
Saoirse Ronan.
I was like, I don't. Is that English? Saoirse Ronan. Okay, I don't. Is that something I should know from Atonement? Is that like the catchphrase you walk away like?
That's my Tourette's.
Jenny
Saoirse
from
Ronan.
yeah. It's a weird form of
I
Tourette's.
just yelled foreign actresses.
You have like a
names.
Japanese lady living next to you or something at some point. That's a weird like thing to pick up and just do. All the synapses in your brain fire, and that's what it comes out with. That's how it expresses
Just
itself.
foreign actresses.
It's crazy.
Uta Hagen. Anyway, so we thought we would count down in honor of that film top 10 historical figures in film.
Correct.
So this is an interesting list because I was caught between like, do I nominate the person because of the film or do I nominate the person because of the performance? And in the end, I settled on the fact that for me, it's the importance of the figure and then the performance. So that's what I focused on, not the films themselves, but the performances within the films. So that's how I created my list.
That's fine.
Yeah. It was such an open-ended topic. And
It is. It's a case-by-case scenario. I excluded a whole ton.
Yeah.
For various reasons. One of the biggest things, I violated a little bit here and there, but I wanted someone that was already historically significant.
Yeah.
And maybe this taught me more about them or was a nice encapsulation of a period of their time that I already knew. I tried to do that since we're going historical figures. Like when I saw that, I knew who that individual was, or at least I had heard of them and heard a few things they had done, with the exception, I think, of just one on my list.
Okay.
Yeah, I was the same way because I was like, there's so many biopics and movies that have almost introduced us to real people that we didn't know much about. For instance, something like I'd heard of Alan Turing, but only vaguely. But then The Imitation Game gave us a clearer idea of what he contributed to history. So, like Matt, my first go of this, I had 27 movies written down, and I was like, okay, so what's the criteria to start, crossing these off? And that was one of mine too. I decided to go with really significant, well-known, you would find in a high school history book, most likely.
Interesting.
Figures.
Sure. All right.
So that was one of the many criteria I ended up having to come up with for myself.
Mark Ellis got mad at me when I showed him the list and it did not have Billy the Kid on it. He was pretty upset at me. And I was like, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I can't.
It's only 10 spots.
Yeah, there's only 10 spots.
It's tough. And plus, I wanted to reward for other things.
Yes.
Exactly.
And so movies like that were just like, you're getting excluded because you're up for these in my category list.
Yeah.
And I'm already taking those. I'm trying to like pepper it around to at least also talk about some movies maybe we haven't talked about.
Yeah, sure.
And do something like that. I mean, maybe 2 or 3 of these, maybe.
Okay. And Rachel's right. Like, there's so many to choose from, and especially, if you know anything about of the Schmoedown show, there's one of my favorite topics is biopics. So
Yeah.
like Rachel, I immediately had like 50 when I first started. And then I was like, well, okay, start to cut. And you start to cut based on whatever your personal criteria is. And this is why I was looking forward to this episode, because it's going to be very open-ended. Who knows if we'll have any of the same ones.
I was just going to say, we could have 3 really different lists.
I think we'll have a couple in common.
4-part episodes.
Yeah.
4 hours. Yeah.
I can already guess like probably 2 of yours.
Okay.
And I'm sure you can guess like 2 of mine.
How dare you?
No, I told her one. I was like,
Getting
John will probably have this. It's the only one I said for sure.
Real quick though, I want to give people a little bit of background on Rachel before we start. For maybe people who don't watch Schmoedown, which I don't know who the hell you are, but like Rachel, where are you from originally?
I grew up in a town called Lowell, Massachusetts, about 45 minutes north of Boston. So born and raised New Englander.
Right.
Went to Boston University Film School. And,
BU, nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then moved out to LA right after graduation. Been here 15 years.
What were you studying for in film? What was your focus at the film school?
Well, it was there that I decided to pursue post-production and editing.
Okay.
But the great thing about the program was that it exposed you to all levels. I took one screenwriting class and said, nope.
Okay.
Took some production level classes, and I liked certain aspects. I actually really liked cinematography.
All right.
I knew pretty much right off the bat I didn't want to direct either. I find it's a very collaborative process, and I like being a piece of the process. I don't like bossing the process.
Oh, interesting.
And I just fell in love with editing. I actually got to cut on actual celluloid film.
Nice.
I'm that old, yes. And but we also at my last year got like one of the first digital editing systems, so I got a little taste of both.
Right.
And then moved out to LA, and had to do the PA thing and work my way up and assist and all that stuff. But yeah, to this day I still love it because I love the puzzle aspect of it, of taking all this footage and putting it together. And particularly I work in unscripted, so that's reality television or documentary, and that's even more so. That's just like, here's a pile of footage,
Yeah,
find
hunt
a story,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of shit you gotta sift through, but there is a real sense of pride in finding the story and crafting the story out of all of that material that I love.
Do you find you've gotten? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, nothing. I'm just thinking about the slog of having to go and like log all
There
that
are
footage.
days.
Yeah.
There are days.
Like, dear God, day after day, just like there's got to be a better way to do this.
Yeah.
Let's get an unpaid intern in here. Give me the beats.
Yeah, I used to work for about 3 months. I worked for Jeff Margolis Productions when they did the reality show for Fame. Where they brought back Debbie Allen.
Sure.
And I was the assistant production manager on it, and I traveled with them and set up like the shoots in Miami and New York and Chicago and LA. But when we got back to the to LA to actually catalog log all the footage, we had 4 people all day watching the footage and writing it, logging. And I'm like, I can't even imagine one person doing this. And so when you talk about getting just a pile of stuff and putting it all together from scratch, because I know a few editors, and it's a certain type of skill, and you have to have an incredible amount of patience to do it.
To piece the story together in your head as you're going, of like, I'll use that clip there, that's good, and try and catalog and build it before you have to build it, like
and
mentally.
remember it, like
Yeah.
And I actually, my very first job out here was for an advertising company, so a trailer house for all intents and purposes, and it's similar. I actually, what I do now in unscripted, I learned to some extent there, and it's, trailer editors will watch the whole movie and then go, I'm going to take that line from the first act and this line from the third act and this reaction shot from somewhere in the middle and craft it that way. So the same thing in the shows that I work on now. I'll be watching footage and I'll see something from a scene early on, and then I'll see a line from 15 minutes later and go, oh, those two things together help me tell the story I want to tell. So you have to have all of those shots in the back of your mind as you're moving forward. And then when you see where, the dialogue progresses, then it starts to take shape in your head. But yeah, you got to remember those pieces and be able to think, okay, 2 shots from, hours apart or days apart together work for the story I want to tell.
I love it. So I don't enjoy comedies all that much because I just sit there and dissect.
Right.
I don't ingest, and now you're basically forcing yourself to do the same thing. Like for somebody that does cuts trailers, that kills the movie. You're not thinking about what's in front of you. You're thinking about like, okay, that's something I can use, and you're hunting while you watch. You're only partially paying attention.
When I was at this company, they cut all the Lord of the Rings trailers, and I met the editor, and it was a woman, she was my hero and still is, one of the best mentors I ever had to this day, Jen Horvath, and we got the first cut of Return of the King in, and I'm like, see ya. I'm out of here. I don't want to see this. I don't want to, nothing. I don't want to see undone effect shots. I don't want to see green screens. I'm like, I was working in the dub room. This, again, dates me. There's no such thing as dub rooms anymore.
Yeah.
But I was like, nope, I'm taking a long lunch. I'll work late, whatever it takes. I do not want to be in this room.
Yeah.
I'm going to see this movie when it's done for the first time.
And you have what, the Elvish saying, what is it, speak, friend, and enter, or whatever it is?
Yeah, it's the Elvish writing on the ring.
That's what it is.
Matt's looking
that
at the
makes
back
sense.
of my laptop.
Yeah.
So yes, this and my several Elvish tattoos and my entire library at home decked out and maps of Middle Earth. I mean, I guess if fans haven't seen the Schmoedown, then they don't know this about me. But I love Lord of the Rings.
Yeah. Jay goes, I'm just going to watch the movies and I'll remember stuff. And Rachel almost laughed at him. Like, she laughed at him.
Laughed.
He's
like, I'm going to watch these once. I'm like, do you have any idea how many times I've seen those movies?
Yeah.
In theaters.
No, what do you think about the reboots? It's not really a reboot, but the Hobbit.
series
the
that's
TV
coming?
show thing.
And then
I tweeted out no.
Oh.
I just tweeted no.
Because it's a prequel,
Do they have?
Well, here's the thing. If they have access to the entire Tolkien estate, from what I understand, they have made an agreement.
Okay.
And now they have access to all of Tolkien's prehistories.
Ooh. Okay.
So if they delve into that, I am in 100%.
Okay.
If all they want to do is capitalize on the characters that we already know and love and decide to tell like a young Aragorn Chronicles story, I'm out. I have no interest in that.
That's where they're going.
No, that's where they're going.
That's
why I tweeted no.
That is exactly. Why wouldn't you go there? I'm sitting there like thinking about it from the executive side and be like, we have to get somebody that everybody knows because it's tough to just start anew and make them fall in love.
Young Aragorn Chronicles.
It has to be. There's so much TV. They're competing.
I know.
They got to make a badass story from day one.
They're talking about this being the most expensive show ever made. So I get the business gamble side of it. But as a Tolkien fan and having read every word he's ever written multiple times, I know the rich histories and the stories they could be telling.
Yeah.
So maybe they do these sort of prequel type things like an in-between Hobbit and Lord of the Rings to start with.
Right.
And then if it does well, maybe they can go there. But I'm just like, those movies are perfect.
Yeah.
So there's no need to revisit that.
Well,
and if you
let's not get out of control.
Yeah.
I forgot. Roka has a thing about hobbits, and we're not getting into that argument.
What if though, like
we're not doing
Listen here, young lady. This is my show.
Yeah.
I get into what I want to get into.
you could do it like if you picked certain things that you knew were longer in the book. What if we just a one-off 2-hour movie of here's everything that happened that we couldn't show you on screen?
Sure.
Like that'd be interesting.
Yeah, explain that whole boring thing with John Noble and Pippi or Marin, whatever his name is, who's out there trying to sing the song for him. If you could like explain that entire sequence of him possibly being in that fucking movie, great. Let's start there and move forward from there.
That's
Can't
like a
tell I'm
decade's worth of
rolling my
bitterness right there. Just fucking.
All of it. If you can explain the Brad Dourif stuff as well, all that stupid thing about whispering into the king and turning him pale white. Those are the parts.
That
of the
one's
movies
more
that turn me
forgivable
off.
for me. I know what you mean on that one.
But I would love to see a Treebeard Chronicles. I loved Treebeard.
Sure.
Treebeard was awesome.
Yeah, and all his people, like, what did he do? They've been around for how many centuries? How old are they?
If you go back that far, I'm interested.
Yeah,
I'm
see?
definitely interested.
I'm cool with that.
How do you do an entire, like, I Am Groot TV series? How do you do that? That's the whole show? Hey, there's a reason he's a sidekick, guys. I don't know if you could do Treebeard an entire season.
And they're slow talkers, so it's a slow show.
Oh, my God.
The first 15 minutes is saying hello. I mean, you know how it is. It's just around the table. Around the forest, everywhere.
It sounds like we want to bankrupt, what is it, Amazon that bought that?
Yep.
Let's go pitch this idea, guys.
Hello.
Let's raise the prime rate on the rest of us.
So one last question, though. So when you watch the Oscars, or when you watch films, do you freak the fuck out as an ed? Like Matt was saying earlier, his thing is like he almost can never enjoy comedies because he can see the jokes coming and he can see the setups and the punchlines.
I'll just start guessing and be like, I would have written this, and I don't process. I am dissecting.
Do you squirm around in the theater sometimes when you see some bad editing?
I definitely
in films?
can, because there's two kinds of good editing. There's, if you don't notice it, it's good editing.
Yeah, true.
And then there's the kind where something like Whiplash, was one of the best edited things I've seen in 10 years.
Yeah.
But it's noticeable because it's rhythmic, because the movie's about music and the tension. And so editing helps ramp up that tension. And it's so precise. Like, there's not a frame I would change in that film. And I can't even tell you, I screamed out loud when Tom Cross won the Oscar because nobody thought he was going to win that year.
Right.
So there's that. And then there's anytime there's a movie that, jumps around in time or time travel, like editing plays such a crucial role in that.
Yeah.
And so I'll notice it in that instance. War films, editing is huge, and continuity and things of that nature. So yeah, there's certain movies, and if it's just badly edited in just like a normal, run of the mill, drama, comedy, or whatnot, then I'll absolutely be squirming and be like, I'm not paying attention to the dialogue because, and sometimes it's shot composition too, but cutting from one shot composition to another, I'm like, why?
Yeah.
But we each have our hang-ups with this stuff.
It happens. It just sucks because you sometimes don't appreciate something that everybody else does.
Yeah.
And you're like, I understand what you do, but I just can't for these built-up years of scarring myself on the inside of like, why? Sorry, that's just my fault.
All right. So anyway, let's get to the list. Matt, do you want to tell them how the show works?
Sure. Once we set a topic, we all go our separate ways and create individual top 10 lists, and we show back up here. When we have a 3-man show, this is the way it works. I do my bottom 5. John does his bottom 5. Then, Rachel, you'll be doing your bottom 5. Then we trade 2 apiece. Then we trade our last 3 as one-offs. This is the worst of all time. Once we revealed our personal top 10 list, we create the shows between the 3 of us.
Boom!
Yeah, I appreciate the boom, but that was I stutter stepped right in the middle of that. It's been a long day.
Well, it's a new player on the team, so we got to figure out our chemistry.
We eased
I'm making
into
them
this
nervous,
though.
guys.
We eased into this nicely. We do like 25 off the top, just shooting the shit.
That's right. All right. So Matt, do you want to start us off?
Yeah. We've already talked about it. It was a tough list. I'm just going to jump right in. Number 10, Downfall. Anybody?
Oh my God, that's my number 10, and I totally didn't think you guys would have it.
We are punting.
Wow.
We're punting.
That is
Really?
up on my list.
All right.
I
Nice.
absolutely love, and we'll talk about it later.
All right.
Okay, 9.
Yes.
I can't imagine this one's going to happen. Amistad.
Ooh, who in Amistad?
It's what, John Quincy Adams?
Oh, so
Yes.
you chose
Sounds
overall
easy.
films.
Yes. I chose
Okay,
films.
okay.
Well, this is like you know what?
This
I
is
can go a lot of
historical
different
figures.
ways.
Yeah.
I don't choose all these other excellent films because I disqualified them for small things. And after a while, it's just like, what else do I want to talk about?
Well, if we're saying top 10 historical figures in film, who is the one in the film that is the historical figure that you would attach this to that makes you enjoy Amistad? That's what I would say.
Okay, well, that's your interpretation of the list. I told you, there are violations.
You don't have to answer my question. That's
There are
right.
violations within,
Okay, fair.
It's just, this one was...
May I offer John Quincy Adams as Anthony Hopkins? He did a fantastic job.
I mean, if we're talking about known historical figures
fair.
from
Yeah.
beforehand, which is just like that. Not saying it has to be your criteria, but
Right.
that's the one that jumps out. But Solomon Vandy was a actual person,
Yes,
right?
true.
So,
Yeah.
but
Yes.
it's not one that I knew before I saw the
No,
movie.
Gotcha.
No, and that's where it violated, like, that, and I've got one other one. Those are my 2, but
Okay.
there's
Yeah.
an extra 12 on the side over here, and I'm like, I'm going to disclude because of X, of Y, of Z, and then I was like, I can't really exclude this one except that maybe it's not the best overall film. I enjoyed the hell out of it. I've watched it. It was part of my box of VHS tapes.
Which one are you talking about? Amistad?
Amistad.
Yeah.
Nice.
Whatever. For like a 4-year period of my life, I had just a box of VHS, and then I had like a stack of like 30 DVDs, and I just watched those over and over. And Amistad was one of those.
Okay.
So I've seen it probably 25 to 35 times.
Wow.
Yeah, I've seen it a lot.
It's not a Spielberg movie. A lot of people put
No.
up
Yeah, yeah.
there.
No, look, give us free. I know that whole scene backwards and forwards. There's a lot of excellent, like McConaughey early, where he showed signs of I can do something beyond what you all anticipate from me.
Yeah.
And was it Jimon Hansu?
Jamin
Yeah,
Hansu.
Jamin Hansu. Yeah, he is the main African slave, and it's an. I also like it from the historical significance of it starts to define a man as a man overall.
Yeah.
Because they were African people who were stolen by Spanish slave traders,
Yep.
but the Spanish government didn't have. That wasn't allowed.
Right.
So they were doing it illegally. So they were illegally taken individuals. So they still had rights of free men. And when they came here, we respect those rights. And eventually it came down to, yes, by the letter of the law and the significance of, yes, that is still a man. It helped propel us down a path where equality is more the norm amongst all individuals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a small victory, but there's got to be a lot of battles in this overall war.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And once again, I've seen it 25 to 35 times. So I have, there is a piece of me that loves it because I've seen it that many times. It's hard to describe.
I absolutely respect that. And to be honest with you, man, as an actor, which I still am to a degree, when you watch a film and you see a monologue that makes you jealous, that makes you want to do it immediately, that Anthony Hopkins monologue when he is defending the slaves at the Supreme Court, it's like an 8-minute monologue, which is so rare in film, is one of the most gorgeous monologues I've ever experienced in my life. And I almost stood up in the theater when I was watching it and started clapping like I was watching a stage play, because it was such an incredible delivery in the build and the pacing of the monologue. Like, as an actor, so as you watch editing, you watch the guy. Like, to me, I watch the builds in the acting. Like, I'm watching what they're doing.
Sure.
I'm not an Anthony Hopkins level actor, but but the basic techniques are always the same. So you're watching them as they go along. And what he does in there is watching a master at work. It's watching Picasso paint something. It is phenomenal to watch him with that much screen time and that much dialogue. And he nails it. He absolutely nails it. So I hear you.
Well, he's got, what we saw in Lecter the first time around, he can command with his eyes and his voice.
Yes.
So he doesn't even need to be in frame. You can hear his voice, and it has a chilling effect where it kind of cuts through the bullshit of your psyche and just like, boom, I'm zoned in on whatever he's talking about off screen.
Yeah.
Whatever the case is. And within that scene, like, the music lifts nicely, but it doesn't go the full like crescendo, which sometimes it can with Spielberg. And I love him for it when he makes that choice a lot of times. Just overall, I've always enjoyed the film.
All right. What's your number 8?
My number 8 is one we talked about a few weeks ago, Spartacus.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Either?
I ended up, this was the one that hurt the most. So I'll just put it out there that because you guys did that list from a month ago, best heroes, real life heroes depicted in film.
Yes.
I cut I cut them out.
Okay.
So I have none of my films are any that you talked about that week.
Okay.
Even though 2 of them hurt me not to put on this list, and that was one of them.
Well, I appreciate you doing that research.
Spartacus.
Yeah.
Oh
Thank
my
you very
God.
much.
Yeah.
I just
I'm Spartacus.
yeah, I almost excluded because we know so little about the man.
That's true.
True.
And
That's
A
why
lot
I
of
took it
dramatic
off.
license probably taken.
99.9%
Yeah.
history, and you kind of have to with any figure from that time.
I'm going to get
Yep.
shit for some of the ones I left off my list, so I hear you.
Yeah, and certain people didn't have PR. Like in that Alexander the Great,
I don't think it was a thing then. Well, then maybe
Alexander the
No,
Great.
what does that mean?
Alexander the Great created it. He brought
that's a good point.
chroniclers with him,
All right.
and they would tell the tales, so
Yes.
it built the lore even more. But nobody really, I don't believe, before that in history thought to do it. And there's still people within centuries of that still didn't do it.
And it's very unlikely anybody would have been chronicling Spartacus because the
a
people in
slave.
charge at that time would be pushing that story down.
They do.
Like, no, we don't want
Right.
that getting out.
The victors write history, so the victors in that were the noblemen because they ultimately got the upper hand again. So
Right.
we only know so little about them. It all got snuffed out.
But the Greeks have historians who are writing what's happening
But a
to
lot
a
of it was
degree,
way
but
after the fact.
It is.
Right,
a
not
lot of it.
chroniclers. Though.
Like
That's
a
true.
good account is from 400 years after.
Yeah.
That's
There are
true.
some counts that are 1,000 years after. You
Yeah.
just take it because that was still 1,500 years ago, and you're like, well, maybe he probably knew more than we
And
did.
there's been so
passed
many
down.
sacking of cities and fires that some
Yeah.
accounts just didn't survive.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, who knows what we lost? Like when what is it? Baghdad was raided and they destroyed the library there.
Yeah.
And you're like, I can't even
Alexandria.
imagine all the information that we would have now
Right.
about all kinds of figures that created things years before we got to it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Just like this has been around for a long time.
Like Jesus lived. Burning that.
Yeah.
Burn that. Can't have that
So
out there.
within Spartacus, to see that, like it's something that's a fantasy in your mind, even though you have some record of it having happened, and see it come to life and just. It's another story of basically a person standing up for his rights, kind of. And just like we're not to die for your amusement.
Right.
Right.
It's a waste. It's a waste of everybody. It's a waste of time and fucking resource, for Christ's sakes. But just to have a slave stand up and actually succeed. And what is it? Was that the second or the third? Is it Slavic War?
Sure.
I can't remember how they phrase it.
Sure.
or something like that.
Whatever
Sure.
you say, man.
Sure.
I believe you. I just love the movie.
I know there was others. It's like The Matrix. There's been others, and maybe you don't know about it because they took out all the people that did it before you. Right. But now, looking back through the history of time, we can see.
I didn't say it at the time.
Yeah, we didn't tell you about it. Why would we tell you?
Was the Great War until World War II happened.
Yeah.
Would you be happy if like you died and if you went to heaven and whatever and like there's this massive library with all the knowledge you could have ever like to answer? Yeah, I
have the answer to every question you
I'd
ever
never
wanted.
leave the library. I'd never leave the library. I'd never leave the library.
Well, I would hope for like there's a better way to synthesize the information so you get it quicker
Like
as
the
opposed to
Matrix,
yeah, maybe something like that. Boom, that's exactly how it happened. You know, how many shooters were there with JFK?
Yeah.
Bang, no, instantly.
Yeah. That's a good film. Kirk Douglas, Tony Curtis, Peter Ustinov.
Yeah, look, we talked about it a couple weeks ago. That's what I.
Yeah, we
So
don't have
move
to
on?
go down that
Okay.
again. But
What's your number 7?
My number 7 is The Passion of the Christ.
Wow.
oh, see, I
you put
cut
Jesus
myself
up.
off. Yeah, I was like, I
He
thought
has-
about it. I thought
he has
there are
historical
several
validity
choices
like
for
anyone
that.
else.
Because you could have picked the greatest story ever
Okay.
told. You could have picked, oh my God, the other one.
The other one.
What? Well, there's Passion of the Christ and Last Temptation of the
Yes,
Christ.
thank you.
Which I just bought on Criterion the other day. It's 50%
It's good.
off right now at Barnes & Noble.
Yeah.
At Criterion.
It was on my side list.
Okay.
To me, what you don't except for
I believe in Jesus Christ. That's all I'll say. But
okay.
I don't. I left him.
it's
I
legit.
left it off my list because I to me it's like there's so many conflicting stories of whether he actually lived, if he actually existed, and actually to me I wanted to be more anal about this list. So, but I
Okay.
respect you putting it on your list, absolutely, because it was on my side list because Caviezel is fantastic in this movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, the movie's
So
emotionally just jarring.
yeah.
It's a hell of a movie to tell.
It's not. I've only ever seen it once because I just
really?
really don't
Me
know
too.
how hard.
And I
think
still
it'd be
remember
too
it
hard to
vividly.
sit-
Oh.
Yeah.
I own it. I've seen it.
Wow.
I watch it every Easter. That and
Yeah.
Ben-Hur are the two ones I watch every Easter.
Okay.
Because it's the Stations of the Cross. When you're a religious
Yeah.
Latino, that's kind of like how you're brought up. And where I was in Holy Family Catholic Church in Virginia, you had the Stations of the Cross constantly on the church walls.
Yeah, I had that in my
Follow-
church
yeah.
as a kid.
So you could follow along, And so for me, it's
And
very deep in
At
there.
CCD, we would go through
Yeah.
and
Oh, yeah.
on
That's
Sundays
right.
and do like 3 one week and 3,
Right.
went through all that myself. I take it in that the same way that I do Spartacus. It's someone that there is some sort of record of, and I wasn't there, so I take it as the fact that, he should have, or most people believe he did exist,
Yeah.
therefore he existed.
And there's no doubting the historical, cultural, his impact. Regardless
Yeah.
of what we know for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that is, one of the most famous figures across the world. So I think it's
Easily say it's the
legit
most
choice.
famous.
Yeah.
True.
I mean, just as a, like,
Michael Jordan, but yeah, sure.
yeah, you say, well, maybe 10 years ago, 15 years
sure,
ago.
sure.
David Beckham, like 8 years ago. Yeah, there's
We're
been
gonna get in
others.
trouble now. We're gonna get that John Lennon. We're more famous than Jesus Christ. Oh, shit.
Yeah, that's probably true.
No, but you make a great point, and this film is powerful in its delivery and Caviezel. I mean, for all the shit this film sometimes gets in critics' corners, it's like it's torture porn or it's whatever. But I was happy with the film because this is what we were taught in
Yeah.
religion,
Yes.
in the Bible, in church. And we were sugarcoating it when you see it in Jesus of Nazareth, that TV series that was on, or the other greatest story. You
Yeah.
never see the extent to which. And if he sacrificed for your sins, it's not going to be a beating.
Yeah,
it's going
not
to
gonna
be
pretty.
Slashes.
yes, and it's going to be destructive and
Where
skin and it
skin
says-
pulls off the flesh. Like when I was
in the Bible.
when I was a little kid, the first version of Stations was gorier.
Yeah.
And I remember it got replaced with like they still had some of the wounds, but like when I was a little kid, the wounds in his back over his rib cage were bad.
Yeah.
And that's still a cleaned up version of, and then to see that represented before me on film was like, it was so powerful to watch. But like I know this story, and it's vividly come to life before me, and it pulls no punches.
Yep.
And I love the fact that it's in Aramaic. So they go back to the original language, and fine, I'll suffer through subtitles because it gives me an authentic, quote unquote, experience.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was just like it was such a powerful movie. I've only seen it once though. I've seen bits and pieces but I'm like you. It just once was enough, and I remember it, and I will always remember it.
It's stuck with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
It was a tough
that's
film.
impactful.
Yeah. All right, so that was your number 7?
That was my 7.
Was your
My number 6, Malcolm X.
Punt that.
Okay, we're punching it.
Okay, well, that's easy enough.
Put it out there.
That's easy enough.
Just slam that in there. All right. All right, so we start with me.
Yep.
I feel terrible now on the heels of Jesus Christ. My number 10 is Jesse Eisenberg in The Social Network playing.
See, I don't think
that
it's
was
been
too current to me.
Yeah, me too.
Who's he playing? Zuckerberg. But I think it's historical significance because everything we do from now on, Facebook is the foundation. Facebook spawned the burst of social media. Twitter, we don't have Snapchat, we don't have anything, Instagram, without Facebook first. Yes, there's MySpace, yes, there's Friendster, but Facebook was the one that blew up all over the world.
It remains to be seen, though, if it'll be around in 10 years. It should be.
I find it fascinating to think about. Think like 25 years from now, what will people, 50 years from now, what will people be thinking, and will his name be at the top of that list? I mean, it certainly seems likely.
It's possible.
It will be.
He could be the Edison, Tesla, something like that, where...
I don't think... there's no way he isn't.
Yeah, exactly.
Him. Always say his name, Zuckerberg.
Like Gates, Warren Buffett,
right.
Jobs.
Steve Jobs, exactly. And the fact that he keeps talking about running for president, there's certainly a possibility he could leave an even stronger mark in historical significance if he ever gets elected.
I don't know if I like the guy that knows everything about everybody running for president. That doesn't, and then giving him access to NSA, I don't know if that's a good idea. I'm not saying you do anything bad with it, but I'm just saying giving someone that already has that power and being like, you ever tried steroids?
Yeah.
And just let's just give him a little juice. That could end up bad for all of us.
But I liked Eisenberg's performance in this film. You know, sometimes he can do his tricks as an actor, his style, his stuff, but it really works in this film. And he is, what do you call that? I don't want to say intoxicating, but you can't take your eyes off him throughout the whole movie.
True.
And I've seen this movie multiple times because of him and because of Aaron Sorkin's dialogue. And
that's the key.
Yeah, I think that's the key. Dialogue and the direction elevated Eisenberg past the Eisenberg-ness.
Right.
I think it focused
honestly,
him.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
It took Eisenberg to be like, you know what you're good at? This.
Yeah.
Just like that is a skill set you have. You should try and do more movies like that.
Yeah.
But I think it's the Sorkin is a great point because it's hard to replicate it. Like I buy Sorkin in West Wing.
Yes, of course.
That's a situation where people are walking and talking. A very the Sorkin staple.
Yeah.
But in this, it's just like, this character does seem to just to the point. I'm cutting through the bullshit. Yeah, I loved it.
Okay. So then my number 9 is Gary Oldman in Immortal Beloved as Ludwig von Beethoven.
Excellent choice.
Yeah, I was struggling between that and another one. So it didn't quite
I got what you're saying. I got what you're saying.
Yeah, and I hear what you're saying because that one's on my list too. But
I figured it would.
It was just how high between the two of us is my question.
But this one I had to put on because I champion this film as being an unfortunate... being in the wake of Amadeus.
Yeah.
It's unfortunately in the wake of Amadeus. Now, it's not as good as Amadeus, the film, but Beethoven is another person than Amadeus. He's a darker, more brooding, tortured.
You can hear it in his music.
Yes, exactly. And so the film itself can't be this lighthearted, fun, still slightly dark, but lighthearted, fun film. It's going to have these.
I prefer Beethoven.
Moments. Yep, there you go.
Over, Mozart.
Yeah, and this was when Gary Oldman was like kind of achieving the sweet spot of an actor, right? He was branching out. He'd done The Professional. He was doing Romeo is Bleeding, which is this weird little kind of side film with Lena Olin. He'd done all these other kind of hardcore films, and then you have Immortal Beloved come out. And I remember I drove down to D.C. to see this because this is still when I'm like figuring out if I want to pursue film as a life, you know? And so like I was working part-time and I would drive down to see films in DC because we didn't have a independent movie theater or a movie or a theater that showed these kind of avant-garde films close to my house in Dale City, the small town of Virginia I lived in. So I would drive down to DC to see these films, you know. And so this was one that when it came out, I'd read it in the magazines and I had to go see it, you know. And I think I saw it in DuPont Circle or one of these theaters down there in DC. And I was just blown away by what I went by myself. I used to go by myself all the time because I didn't give a shit. Because to me, it was about experiencing the film.
Sure.
And that sequence when he is the Ode to Joy sequence is the best part of the movie, and everything that happens there. It's so well done. And you know, Gary Oldman, you see his struggle as Beethoven. You see what he suffers through, and you want to hate him through the whole movie. But then they show you all this background stuff to him that just and he does such a great job bringing such complexity and levels to a character that is deaf.
Yeah.
And so it's just amazing.
Crazy.
So that's my number, 9? Yeah. So then my number 8 is George C. Scott in Patton.
Punt.
Yeah, it was on my side list. That was a tough.
Wow. All right. Then my number 7 is what we just punted from earlier, which is Bruno
Downfall.
Gans in Downfall.
Okay.
Yeah,
but
in Hitler, which
do we
is
have
number
still a
10.
punt for you?
It was at my 10. So.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. I forgot.
So there's a punt for me.
I'm so happy that you both had this on the list.
Oh.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one of the most powerful performances because, and what I love about the idea of, so you have biopics that span like the lives of the main characters.
Yes.
And then you have other films. This spans, 10 days? 12 days.
It's a very short window.
Yeah. And by doing that, you just get to focus in, and it's at the end for him, and just that crazy, fanaticism came to like its peak in those moments, and you could see the people around him starting to see that, and the war scenes in the streets of Berlin, and how Berlin was, sacked by the Russians, and how what he wanted everybody to go down to the last man and bathe the city in blood, and I don't know, it's just such a visceral performance, and just hands down, and he's one of the most well-known historical figures in the world.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The devil himself, but you can't discount his impact on history. So.
That's it's fascinating about Hitler, because there are people who were more evil than him, who did genocide, who did genetic cleansing,
on levels that
he didn't come close to.
No.
Yeah.
But there's something about the combination of the speeches, the combination of the fact that Nazism is still around today, even more so now. God help us all. Those kinds of
I wouldn't go that far. More so now. They used to run a country.
No, I mean more so now than
more than
before.
I think it's more out in the open now.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
It's kind of harder to hide, and we're starting to see like
People don't wanna
there's a
hide it.
decent population of these individuals.
Like in Poland, they had 60,000 march, the other 60,000 person march the other day. That essentially white power Nazi march in Poland, and the images from it are just so unsettling. So it's still there.
Yeah.
But what Bruno Gans does in this film is, for lack of a better term, he humanizes Hitler. You don't necessarily sympathize with him, but you humanize him.
You have to.
Right, because you have to understand.
Exactly.
Right.
If you create him and turn him into Satan, we've talked about it before.
Yeah.
If you turn him into Satan, then you don't objectively look at him, and you can't learn from your past.
Yeah.
Right.
So you're going to repeat this down the line. So if we understand that he's a human, and at the end, it's rats trying to flee a sinking ship.
Yeah.
And the ones that stay, like Goering, bringing his family there.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. Like, I knew that they were there, and then just to watch this simple act happen before you, and you're like, you people are monsters.
Yeah.
You're monsters. I cannot allow them to grow up in a world that doesn't have the Fuhrer and National Socialism. How many kids do you have? Because there should be social services should step in, because you've already had too many kids, because that is banana talk. That is crazy. I don't understand. And she's at the tippy top.
Yeah.
She's at the tippy, but at the end, I love it when he's looking down Hitler's, and it's a great representation of him, because he's clutching at straws, and he sees the map, and it's the first time when he's drawing up, pulling all these imaginary divisions out, and he leaves the room, and they're like, the 9th is gone.
What is he talking about?
And then the other people in the room are still like, no, this Kool-Aid is still good. It's still good, guys. And that seemed so real. It seemed like I was in the room, because there were certain people just like, why are we not looking at the writing on the wall?
Yeah.
And others are it's just beautiful.
They were all in at that point, and
You had
they
to.
had to be,
You
down
had
to the
to.
last second.
I love that with the Ava Braun, and she's like, I want to dance. She knows it's
throws
the
the party and gets bombed
Yes,
out. Put
she
the
has
music
to.
back on. It's like
I want to have fun, because I know I'm going to be dead in 3 days.
Yeah.
Let's have fun.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. It's so brutal to watch, and just like, wow, what a terrible. And then just to light him on fire. And,
And the fact that video of him flipping out when they're trying to tell him the truth about what's happening is fantastic, and the fact that it's been used
It's like turned
multiple
into, like,
times.
this GIF
when
meme
people
thing.
Someone did one for me when I lost on Bespin. Someone did one for me when
really?
he's like, Broca hosts a Star Wars show and he's taking off his glasses.
Yeah.
How does he miss Bespin? And so the whole thing is like dubbed, the subtitled that way. So the fact that still endures is amazing about that film, amazing about his performance. And Bruno Gans is one of these actors that I thought was going to blow up in America after this film in the way that Christoph Waltz did. But the only thing I saw him in was Manchurian Candidate, when he played the Albanian guy
That's right.
who was helping Denzel Washington get deprogrammed.
That is true.
And I really thought, because I think he got nominated for this, if not as an Oscar, at least
movie-
It's a hell of a
movie
performance.
The movie did, yeah.
It's a hell of a, like, I buy it 100% of that's, he's erratic at times, and he's trying to pull back to like how can like compose his thoughts. Maybe I can get out of this. Yeah. When his secretary, that's the story's eyes.
Yeah, Alexandra Maria Luna, the actress. Yeah,
she walks in and he's just staring at. Is a picture of Bismarck? I don't know who that's a picture of.
Audubon Bismarck.
The painting, and he's just kind of like lost in a world that's all his own.
Yep. A
day or two before the end. It's such a great film.
It is, right? All right, that was my number 7. Yes, my number 7. So then my number 6 is Thomas Holtz in Amadeus.
That is a punt.
Okay.
That is a punt.
Wow. All right, fair.
We have a lot of crossover, but at different points.
That's what
it seems like. So, okay.
All right, Rachel, we heard your number 10. What's your number 9?
All right. Well, Matt's just going to tell me to punt because Amadeus is my number 9.
Oh,
see?
So we'll be holding off on that.
Yep.
So my number 8 is, I brought some ladies to the table. So The Queen, Stephen Frears' The Queen, starring Helen Mirren.
Helen Mirren. Nice choice.
I think this is Stephen Frears' best film. And it sort of speaks to almost something that, Matt, you were talking about in this idea of class. Mm-hmm. And it's another one of those. This is not her whole life. I mean, The Crown on Netflix is doing that right now. It's Queen Elizabeth II. It's just the window around Princess Diana's death. Mm-hmm. And it's a look into Queen Elizabeth's perspective, which was, this is a family matter. Yeah. Like, I'm not making statements. I'm not, this is an internal thing. And then Tony Blair, played by Michael Sheen, who's like, you can't do that. That's not what the monarchy is anymore. And it's this idea of what does the monarchy mean? What does it represent? And her having to try to change with the times. And it's Helen frickin' Mirren. So, she is just phenomenal in it. And I loved how intimate it felt, even though she was a very kind of, not standoffish, but upper crust. She was brought up in the 30s and 40s to believe the monarchy to be this thing, and her slowly coming to the realization that maybe all the things that she believed about what she was supposed to represent is no longer valid in the current modern world, represented by Blair and everything else. So I just think it's a wonderful portrayal and a very intimate one, and she won the Oscar for it. So not the only one who thinks so.
No, not at all, not at all.
And it's an incredible agreement that the British people have with the idea of the monarchy.
Yeah,
that the fact that it still
there.
exists.
Yeah, I know.
In 2017,
just subsidizing.
Their tax dollars go to pay what they live in. And at any point, they can be like, fuck you, we're overthrowing, we're taking everything, we're selling it all, put it back in the economy. But they don't, because there is a tradition here that is deep, deep-seated in British people. And they'll bitch about them to no end, but they'll never vote to overthrow them or kick them out or stop funding them. I
never say never.
I guess. It's still ingrained in their identity to some extent. So,
but how long does that, because you're starting to get far removed from World War I, World War II, where you needed that type of stabilizing force, and it's more decentralized now, so you don't really need that. So you're just paying for, public relations.
I kind of feel like it's whatever happens next might be the telling of that, because Queen Elizabeth is now the longest reigning monarch in British history.
Yeah, true. And people hate Charles.
Well, what's that going to look like? We don't know what it looks like to have anybody else be the ruler of England in that sense. Yeah. So, they used to run through kings and queens rather quickly every few years.
Especially King Henry VIII.
So I think it's going to be very curious. I mean, when she passes, what happens next in the terms of
if it went in succession down to his son, I think they'd be fine with it.
Right.
Yeah?
Yes. Agree with you completely.
Whereas if it's Charles, they'd even take the ginger, I think, over Charles.
Harry?
Yeah.
By the way, there came out a news article today that Harry, William, and a couple of the other younger British guys are going to be stormtroopers in the new Star Wars movie.
So that's what pays. It pays to be a royal, because then you can get your.
Well, now I'm pissed off. Fucking our English fans, do something about this. That is unacceptable. Just because they're the goddamn princes, they get to be in Star Wars films. Oh, fuck off! It was great when Daniel Craig does it.
Yeah,
of course. Great. It was awesome. And now we got these. Bullshit. We're already envious.
I do want to say one last thing about the Queen. I own that. I love that film. And because what we said about Hitler, and she's not Hitler, but there has always been a pushback, or there was a pushback to her during the 80s and 90s. Thatcher, there were these movements to push back against the monarchy, and people loved Diana. You can't even quantify.
She was the people's princess.
Yeah, right, exactly, and people loved her. So when she died, that what they saw was it was great to see her side of things, which was this was a family matter. This is how we always did things. We kept it in house. No matter who you married, we kept it in house. We had traditions. And the people were wanting to break these traditions. And she, like that scene of her looking at the stag when she's out broken down on the wheel of the Jeep.
She finally questions herself.
Yes,
it's so powerful
because she realizes too, I won't lose power by changing, or lose my status or my strength by changing. I'm actually being stronger by changing. I still remain a stag, even though I acquiesce or I compromise with the people. And that's all they wanted. And so that scene where she comes and talks, and it's just fantastic. And Helen Mirren is one of the most powerful, sexiest actresses you'll ever see on screen. To see her play kind of a dowdy British queen proper was fantastic.
Yeah.
And what's his face, Cromwell playing her husband, is just genius. Yeah. All right, so that was your number 8 or
yes.
not? Okay, what's your number 7?
My number 7. So I was choosing between 2 movies, and I went with the movie that I liked better, which is Frost Nixon.
Oh.
And I was considering
That is a small punt.
Small punt.
That is a small punt.
All right, well, we'll come back to Frost Nixon.
I like this.
I like your list. I'll say this so far. I like your list.
Okay.
All right, what's your number 6?
Number 6, back to the ladies, Sophia Coppola's Marie Antoinette.
I got to leave the room.
I
got to leave the room.
I've seen
this
bits and
movie.
pieces.
I will
I can't
fight
tell you.
anybody to the death.
Well, you got one here.
Yeah, no, apparently
It's a cage match.
There's nothing you can throw at me that will shake
The
my
Crusher versus Outlaw. Who's gonna win?
Anachronistic Maria Antoinette, or
It's just the music. Get over it. No denying that.
if I put rap in Spartacus, you'd lose your fucking mind. There's no difference.
It's
All right.
You can do what you want with the music. It does not take away. It's taking a modern music and emphasizing the decadence and the wrongness of how these people lived compared to how the poor people lived.
Yeah.
I mean, this is just on the eve of the French Revolution. And what I love is that this idea of these people didn't know any better. They were children. She was raised from an early age to be this vapid kind of person who believed in dresses and shoes and putting on a face and parties and dancing and gambling. And this is what God ordained us to do, this stuff. And it was just such almost a refreshing sort of like, no kidding. They were idiots, but they were raised to be idiots.
Yeah.
And it's gorgeous. The costumes and the design in Versailles, and Jason Schwartzman is brilliantly cast as Louis XVI. There's so much about the feel of it that I think nails it, but still comments on it, and is very relatable today in this obliviousness.
What songs do they use?
It's all like punk songs.
Yeah, Aphex Twin and things of that nature.
There's
and
a Sex Pistol song. I think there's Sex Pistol stuff.
Yeah,
in it.
it's very. It can be disconcerting. I'm not saying that it's not. All you have to do is watch the trailer to see that's the vibe that Coppola was going for.
Okay,
but it still fits in the idea of this decadent world. It just comments on it in a more modern way by using that kind of music.
Sure.
But I think it's one of Kirsten Dunst's best performances. I think Coppola brings out the best in Dunst because you have Virgin Suicides as well.
Right. She's definitely her muse.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a lot of Tom Hardy's in it, and Judy Davis and Steve Coogan, and Jamie Dornan, before anybody knew who the heck he was, has a bit part in it. But I get swept up in it, and I love the sort of tongue-in-cheek way she comments on class disparity in this time. I'll go to bat for this one.
My only issue with the movie.
Bullshit.
I'm going
you
to
got
say
numerous.
there's probably more than one.
This is just your favorite issue to bring up about why you hate this fucking movie. But go ahead. I agree. I love those moments myself.
To me, I could not shake the feeling that this is Sofia Coppola validating her privileged upbringing as Coppola's daughter. And I felt that was what I was seeing in the movie, was her life through Marie Antoinette's behaviors and actions, and showcasing it, and then making you feel sympathetic to her, and by default sympathetic to Coppola, to Sofia Coppola, and the accusations of Sofia now that all she casts are white actresses, all she looks at is white stuff. There's something here to explore. So for me, that's what I kept feeling, and so that's why I can't. But that being said, and that all being aside, I respect the gutsiness to create a film like this, the artistry of a film like this. It is a new perspective, and she leans into it 100%.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And so for that, I absolutely think it's a valid film to make and
swing
create.
for the fences, and a lot of people are going to be like,
and
not
we don't
for
do that
me.
anymore. We don't do that. We hardly ever do it anymore. So I think I have no problem with you putting it there. So that's your number 6?
Yeah, that's your 6. So my 5 is just that little mini punt, Frost Nixon.
Frost Nixon. I'm excited that you picked that one too, because I kicked around Nixon.
Oh, Hopkins one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, which is a okay to good movie.
Sure.
With a good to great performance.
Yeah.
But I'm sorry, Langella as Nixon to me is like, out of all the depictions, and we've seen a lot in film
we
and
have.
TV, I feel like his was, I don't know, like got to the essence of it in a real way. And again, like I definitely seem to like trend towards these small window movies.
Sure.
This was just the Frost Nixon taping. So this took place over a handful of months from the idea that Frost had through the
getting everybody to
recordings.
sign off on it, and these are the questions I'll answer.
Include all of Watergate and all of his presidency and all of that stuff. There's just this one moment in this man's life where he was trying to turn the tide, and then this plucky little reporter from New Zealand or Australia who like cornered him and basically got a confession out of him, which
David
is just like a really interesting.
Because he didn't think Frost had the mental aptitude to one up. Yeah, exactly. And he did. He came in. He was very prepared.
Yep.
And I've been to the Nixon Library. Have you two gone?
No.
It's not far from here.
Yeah, was it Whittier or was it someplace else?
It's inland from Anaheim, like 20 minutes, 15 minutes, something like that. I can't remember. As soon as you say it, it's like one of those exactly, that's where it is. I can't remember off the top of my head, though. I hate that when that happens. I'll be like, of course it's there. I don't know why I couldn't remember it. But you go through, and it highlights everything, and then they put basically that Watergate gate and all that stink on like the last hallway before you leave. Right. So you spend an undue amount of time at other points in his presidency, and then the thing that has defined him thereafter is just like, man, you're kind of pushed through.
Photos on the wall. The exit.
I mean, it's a little bigger than that, but at the same time, considering that's what we know him for now, I know why you don't want to highlight that.
Of course,
but you kind of have to do more than that for it.
How big is the Iran Contra wing of the Reagan?
Oh, dude, there's
a.
Oh, my God.
It's like one station.
It's like half a room to his trip to China.
Of course. Oh, for Nixon,
which wasn't a pivotal thing.
Yes, huge. It was huge.
First sitting president, but at the same time, it's like, I don't know if this should take up this much space. But it's fine. It was interesting. You saw a bunch of eventually it was like, and here's the dress that Mrs. Nixon wore. I can't remember her name. Is it Pat?
Nixon.
Yeah. And here's the necklace she was gifted, and they're like trotting out a bunch of stuff just to pad that section a little bit more and a little bit more. But within this, Langella, it's not like they full on went with like bad prosthetics, or he tried to really go too far. He got as close as he could with the voice before it was like, I am, swinging for the fences too hard here. I'm swinging and missing. And he's got such a commanding presence.
Oh, I think that's a thing. Like, in all of these historic films, there are a lot of times where you're like, geez, that's a dead ringer. But a lot of the most memorable ones, if you took a picture and looked at them side by side, it's not exact, but it's the presence, it's the charisma, it's the feeling you get from them. And I think Langella nailed that in this movie.
Well, and I think that's why I could understand debating between the two, because there are moments in Nixon where Hopkins really gets the mania of this man, the incredible well of insecurity that Nixon had. Even though he reached the heights of his political ambitions, he was still he could never enjoy it because he always thought they were coming to get him. He was he was never seen smart enough or attractive enough or interesting enough, and all of that bled into everything else he did. I mean, and Nixon is an interesting cat because you can't put him in a box. Because for his wife, and this is amazing. It's in Nixon. He drove his wife on dates for 2 years with other men. He chaperoned her because he loved her, and he said, "You're going to end up with me, but I want to chaperone." So he would drive.
I did not know that.
Yes.
That's kind of creepy, actually.
Well, back then.
now. I don't know what it was like at the
yeah.
time. That seems like weird. Okay.
But back then, because they were friends, and so, but he like always would like, you're going to be there, but I want to drive you on your date. So he would drive her on these dates, and this was his way of showing his dedication to her, And so he always stood by her, and then in the end, like she stands by him through the whole thing. And
I mean, their relationship was probably one of the more redeeming qualities about him.
Yeah, but in Frost Nixon. Right, and Langella did it on stage originally, so to see him do it, and there's just a movement and the shoulders and everything, and then he's so sad at the end and diminished, even though he's incredibly tall.
Yeah,
he's so sad and diminished, and Frost almost feels sorry for him, because he brings him the shoes or whatever.
The problem is, it's the philosophy Nixon had of himself ultimately came true in the end.
Yes.
Yeah.
He exposed himself for no other reason than he felt he needed to expose himself as this. Not saying that it just like that type of mania. He didn't feel that he was interesting.
Yeah.
He didn't feel like he was all these things. He'd be like, technically, you're the most interesting man in the world right now, and that's not good enough for you. Just like you have all this power, but you're fearful. It's like that. All that power is not enough. Nothing was ever enough, and he just found wanting ultimately in the end, and that's kind of what he wanted the entire time. And it's a weird, just tear down of a man from himself. But Langella, like when it's the sorrow in Nixon's eyes because he looks at you with his head always kind of tilted down, and he's from an almost feeble position, but there's still, it's like an old dog. Mm-hmm. There's a fight to him left, and you see it in him, but at the same time, just like he's been beaten. Mm-hmm. It was impressive. I couldn't, was that Ron Howard?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yep.
Ron Howard.
Yeah, a departure for him as well. Instead of, anyway, that was my number 5.
Okay, cool.
So then I do my number 4. Yep. Let's see if it makes anybody's list. The King's Speech.
No.
I love that movie to pieces.
Really?
I love that movie to pieces. You want to talk about a window and an obscure thing, but a pivotal thing. Mm-hmm. In that, if you haven't seen it, it's with King George VI. The start of World War II, Hitler has invaded Poland, and he didn't think that anybody would honor their peace treaties with Poland that would come to their aid.
And he was right.
Well, he was, and then they went, basically just got too greedy, and eventually they had to go to war. Yeah. And at the time, George V dies, and Colin Firth is going to be the 6th ultimately down the line, but he's got a hell of a speech impediment.
Right.
And radio, as they call it, wireless, is new. And it's a way to communicate with people. And your country, is this the last gasp of the sun never sets on the British Empire?
They certainly thought so.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's right around this time. So he's literally speaking to the world, and he can't speak. Yeah. And you need this guy to be the lion for a nation that covers the entire globe. You need to exude the confidence and lead us into this worldwide conflict that you know is coming. And the amount that he has to come over as an individual, and then finding, Jeffrey Rush, a doctor, not a doctor, but helps him through it because he's dealt with trauma, and the trauma is what's dictating, it's manifesting itself in this. Right. And let's work through that as we work through this before psychiatry or psychology or whatever it is. Yeah. I don't know what the difference is. What, one can give drugs, the other can't?
Yes.
I don't
Basically.
know. Is there another distinction on top of that?
Psychiatrists are the ones that can give drugs.
Okay. That's bottom line.
Yeah.
That's bottom, yeah. I don't know what the difference is between the two other than that. And how he kind of builds him up and he gives him confidence, but it's more so about a man trying to become something he never thought he was.
Yeah.
It's him.
Never
it's
thought
him
he was
growing.
going to be too, because his older brother was supposed to be king, and he abdicated for his American lover there.
Yeah.
So it was, just
married
like,
lover.
Yeah.
Yes.
Eventually, yeah. So it was put upon somebody who never thought they would have to as well. So
Yeah.
it's like just all of these layers to how complicated that situation was.
Plus, he never
for him.
wanted it.
Yeah.
He wanted just to be the playboy. That's all he wanted. Fine.
And the great back and forth between him and Rush throughout the movie.
That's what I remember loving about the movie.
Exactly.
I don't think I loved it as a whole. Like, I didn't think it was like best picture worthy, but I thought Firth and
See, I did. I was 100% on board.
Were both phenomenal, and like their scenes together were fantastic.
I mean, that scene in the garden when he walks away from him because he's crossed the line with how he's addressing him.
Right.
But he has to understand that has to happen for him.
Yeah.
He brings up the fact that you might need to be king, and like that's treason.
Yeah.
And I don't want it, but I can now attack you and call it treason.
Right.
So this conversation is over. Right. Yeah, and just like the understanding, and eventually Firth is like, you're the first real person I've ever kind of known.
It's that privileged monarchy thing again.
Yeah.
Like they're just not part of the real world,
Yeah.
and he gets to sort of look at it through this other man's eyes.
Yeah, because everything else is through a car's glass,
Yep.
just as he passes by.
By the way, one of the gifts of the film, and I wish there could be a Timothy Spall version of Winston
Churchill.
He is so. I
He's
mean, we're
good.
talking
He
about
is.
Churchill, and because of this episode, but like he's so good as Churchill in this movie. I mean, Mike Myers does a great job as Churchill in Glorious Bastards.
Yeah.
It's hilarious, but like this is Churchill with Spall and the. Well done,
Yeah.
King. Well done, sir.
I had a speech impediment myself when I was a kid. And you're like, really? Look at you. But you buy him like when he's siding with the king because he
Yes.
only has the British, people's best intentions, no matter how flawed they are at times.
Yep.
Yeah, it is good. He just comes in spurts, and you
Yep.
just love him while he's in the scene, and just like floats right out because he would just dominate every scene otherwise.
Yeah.
Over a stutter.
Like Churchill himself.
Yeah,
All right, so then my number 5 is Peter O'Toole in Lawrence of Arabia.
figured it was coming.
Punt.
Ooh, damn.
Okay.
Do you have any left? Like, I just
Yeah, exactly.
You've been punting on everything we said.
You guys have basically mentioned the top several already, but okay.
Or then my number 4 is a punt from earlier, which is Denzel Washington and Malcolm X.
Is that still a punt?
That's still a punt.
That's still a punt.
Wow.
Phenomenal.
Still a punt. What do you got at 5?
I'll shut up now.
Yeah.
What's your
Okay.
5, Rachel?
I'm guessing this isn't on anybody's list. The assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford.
Wow.
It is not.
Fuck me. You put this at 5?
I did. This is.
I love
think
this movie.
This movie is just. It blows my mind every time I see it. I think it's.
I may be falling in love here. Go ahead. Yes, proceed.
The cinematography
Yeah.
and the whole blue cut train robbery scene at the beginning is just masterful. I think it's Brad Pitt's best performance. Obviously, Casey Affleck was nominated. I love how slow it is. I saw it with my best friend. She's like, I'm bored out of my mind. I'm like, I am riveted by
Yeah.
this. It has such an interesting look where you kind of getting to know Jesse James, but the movie also acknowledges the mythos of Jesse James. So you're seeing both sides of it. And I loved that. And I don't love narration a lot, but it works in this case very well. And just in Casey Affleck just lives in that coward of a character who wants so desperately to be Jesse James, and then as he realizes that James is just a person with flaws and isn't going to do all the things that he did in all the comic books that he keeps under his bed, and how he turns and he just craves notoriety because that's what James has. So he's going to get it by killing him, and he's going to do it by shooting him in the back of the head. And the whole epilogue when they're going on tour and they're reenacting how he did it and how the people turn on him because they realize he shot him in the back and how he dies in this anonymity because of the way he did. Like, there's just so much like poetic justice in it in a way, and the movie just exudes that. And it's like the dying of the Old West. It's like a Western, but it's not.
Yeah.
I mean, I could go on, but I just think it's a gorgeous film and a really interesting idea of trying to deconstruct a mythic figure, but at the same time just letting him be the myth.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember when we did top 10 westerns on the video version of Collider, and I put this in my top 10, like in either 10 or 9.
Okay.
And I remember it was met with like, what? Because it's not what people would think of normally as a western. But
Yeah.
the reason why I love it is the exact same reason you said, Rachel. It takes its time and it's slow. And it's actually how the West was.
Yeah.
Like, you see what the West really was. And there was not a lot of this kind of like nobility and morality and this kind of like, they're thieves, they're criminals. So the way they address each other is curt, is
They're
rude.
dirty
They're dirty.
and-
They
You don't trust anyone.
yeah,
Right,
they
yep.
sleep with
Yeah.
other, like he tried to seduce that 13-year-old, that 12-year-old, that guy does, and out, and she's swinging. Like, it's all dirty and nasty and disgusting and terrible. And this is what the West is. So you go with your John Wayne shit, but you have to create room for this kind of Western to exist as well. It's a beautiful Western. To me, it's a lyrical poetry.
Yes.
To me, this and Open Range are two of the most amazing Westerns in the last 20 years that people do not give enough credit for. And you fuck off with your tombstones. These are Westerns, and this is
Right.
where I exist.
What about City Slickers? It's the West come to.
The same level.
Really? I don't know. We're fucking running cattle here.
I think what you point out is really great, Rachel, is that it is Pitt's best performance, and he is unsettling. throughout the whole
Very.
movie because you don't know what he's going to do from one moment
beats
to the
up
next.
The kid
right?
Because he's trying to find out where the traitor is. That it's being rumored to be after him,
Yeah.
and it's like
Because he gets caught up.
Right, he gets caught up in it too, and he's a human being, and he had flaws, and he made mistakes. He got away with a lot of crazy shit, but he also was paranoid and all of this stuff, and you get moments of realness in the film about this mythic figure.
And nothing's more real than when he does get shot. That's how it happens.
In such an inglorious way.
Inglorious, and the way he slams against that wall and comes back. And then Mary Louise Parker's reaction, which is fucking heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Her cries.
For doing so little in the movie,
Yes.
she's so affecting. Yeah.
And then what you see later on, of course, the deconstruction and the destruction of Casey Affleck's character is just being a joke.
Yep.
Yeah. So that was your number 5?
That
That was 5. What do you got at 4?
My 4 is a punt from earlier. It's Patton.
Okay. Is that on your list at all?
No, it didn't make
Okay.
my list. Go ahead.
So that was my number 8. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm a student of World War II films. My dad and I used to watch them all the time, and I've read all the books, Ambrose and everything. And Patton is clearly the most interesting figure in the World War II space of the generals and everybody. And the movie did not shy away from the negative sides of that. I mean, this is a guy who was like, wars aren't. You don't win wars by dying on the field.
Right.
And it's like, whoa, like that's what you say to make people feel better. But he's like, nope, that's not the way I roll. And he
It's
was
a great line.
so vainglorious. He wanted all of the. And so like he's so upset when he's not allowed to do things the way he would do them, to put himself front and center as the savior of everything.
Yep.
And when he slaps the soldier because he's
that's
having
the
a
rough
mental breakdown, you're like, oh, I mean, this guy's kind of awful. But it's that kind of man that's what it takes sometimes to be a military leader
in
and
war.
to get the job done
Exactly.
in war. So, and, I mean, George C. Scott is just phenomenal. And Carl Malden as Bradley is fantastic, too. They work so well off of each other. I just think that it's one of the most realistic portrayals of all these historic characters we're talking about. You don't want to see them just in their, historic, two-dimensional historic light.
Yeah, you want to see their flaws as well.
Yeah, this is as real as I think you can get in a lot of these films, and
especially
and I
for
love
the
that.
year it came out.
Yeah, 1970.
It's not far. Like, it's far enough removed where you should do it, but at the same time, like, a lot of people that would be your movie-going audience lionize this guy.
Yep, they would expect the sugar-coated version of it.
There was, a lot of talk of him being president for a while. Like, he got big enough, and just, I'm sure within, like, Republican Party or whoever it was, it's just like, that guy could be a good candidate for us.
And then he'd open his mouth, and they're probably like, "Nah,
that's the
maybe
problem.
not. Let's take Eisenhower. He's probably a better candidate."
Yeah, I love the shot of him in front of the American flag.
Yeah,
yes,
that is also the representation of what I assume Patton wanted visualized about him.
Absolutely.
American flag, but him out in front of it, just looking as machismo as he possibly can.
Yeah.
This is George C. Scott's greatest performance.
Oh, yeah.
Period, bar none.
I think so.
I own the movie, and I will watch this opening. I will put it in sometimes a Blu-ray just to watch the opening, and then I stop watching because the film is so engrossing. It's so the 3 hours of my life will be gone without me wanting to give away 3 hours of my life to this movie again because it's so good. And being a soldier, having been a soldier myself 8 years, like there's so much about it that resonates and makes sense, and you get that. As great as he was, this one act of slapping the kid ends up destroying
Set him back
whatever
big time.
possibilities he had, presidential or otherwise, and his ego, his hubris. And although he was right 95% of the time, he didn't understand the social awareness to not lord it over people, not to be like...
You still have to play politics as a general.
His inability to play politics is what sinks him in the end, because you're right, he is one of the most interesting characters, if not the most interesting general in World War II. Because, I mean, like, just the fact that he can do all these incredible...
Who are you
Take him
say?
number one?
Would you put Rommel?
Rommel, probably.
Well, I think
The
that
Desert Fox.
Rommel is, but you can't have Rommel without him. Like, I love that.
True, but at the same time, Rommel was an anomaly within the Germans.
Oh, that is very true. That is
and
very true.
you have respect for him even though he was
the enemy.
whooping your ass.
Yep.
And that's a rare combo. That does not happen often in war where you're like, tip your cap because that guy just gets the best of us.
I think Robert E. Lee is another one like that, too.
Yep.
Whatever your feelings are about that Civil War.
Yeah, no, he was
respected
no
his
denying,
abilities,
yeah.
If the South had what the North had in terms of resources, with his tactical abilities, they
Considering how many
probably would have
generals the
won.
North went through
Yeah.
just to get to somebody like Grant and like have something definitive happen. Yeah.
They just had more people. The manufacturing wing, they could just build more resources, and that's ultimately what won.
Well, and C. Scott in that opening is great. You know, what the line you bring up is perfect because it's something. I remember the first time I saw the movie in that line, and I was like, it was like a diamond bullet of logic in my brain.
You
It's like,
can't say that.
he said, "You don't. No one ever won a war by dying for his country.
Yeah.
You make the other guy die for his country. That's how you win the war. And when you stick your hand in a pile of goo, you'll know what to do. And that's the kind of thing. And then you see him work through, and you see the dedication, the love the soldiers have for him.
Sure.
Because he knows they take care of him. And nothing epitomizes more than when he shows up. And those soldiers are all lying around this first command when they put him in charge, and they're all just like, and he whips them into shape, and they're already taking the license plate off the Jeeps, like as the dude is riding away. That's how quickly the transition is because he's got shit to do. He ain't got time to waste for pleasantries or any of that kind of stuff. And so as the film progresses, you just fall more in love with him, but also
Shake your head.
Yeah,
and you're
shake
like,
your head.
Why? This is not how to go about doing this.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
All right, what's your number 3? Yeah,
My number 3 is Lincoln. Anybody?
yeah, that's my number 2.
It's your number 2?
It is.
Dude, welcome to the club. Welcome to the club of loving Lincoln.
Not for the film.
My defense
For the
is I
portrayal.
left it off because you guys had it on your list
Okay.
from a month ago.
That's fair.
The
Okay.
heroes, the
That's
real life
fair.
heroes. So it's
Look,
left off
sometimes you
because
love
of that.
movies.
It was very difficult to leave
It's one of
off
my babies.
one of the greatest presidents we've ever had, played by the greatest actor
Yeah.
alive.
And you
Possibly,
believed it, didn't
yeah.
you? You're like, pretty sure that's exactly how Lincoln was. You know, when you're watching in the theater, I've read, I've probably 5-6 books on the guy and numerous others about that, time period and everything else. And just like, yep, there he is. I bought it 100% hook, line, and sinker, and that is impossible to do.
Yeah.
How do you bring somebody that we've all, as Americans, manifested in our minds over and over? You've been taught the lore. You know,
And
like
he's been in movies.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Since the 30s. He's
Yeah.
been depicted so many times. So
over and over and over, just to see this thing, you're like, this is amazing, and it's another window of time, just about passing this one amendment.
Yeah.
Let's do this now, and him having the tactical foresight to go, listen, once we allow the South back in, then they'll have as much political clout as we do, and they can stop this. So if we don't push it through now, we're never going to get it.
Yeah.
And nobody else wanted to do it because they're so focused on the war, and he had given all that trust to Grant. Be like, just win me the war. I know you can do it, and the dedication within that story is so impressive.
Yeah.
Hell of a cast too. It's not
yeah.
just him. I think that like I have some issues with the screenplay and the overall film, but I think that it's brilliantly cast across the board, and like I love that like it's just a bunch of guys in a room arguing about these things, and that's how it needed to be done, and you get in his headspace in a really great way in that movie.
Well, there are two things, right? We just talked about Patton. Patton 1970, what's happening, Vietnam War, what's happening. We're transitioning a society, movie-going society from the studio system into the auteur director stuff. So Patton is presented with his flaws because the younger generation is going to go see that version of Patton.
Yeah.
What you have here in Lincoln is Obama passing the Health Care Act. He is twisting arms. He is pushing the boundaries of what's allowed, what's not allowed, because he knows he has to get this through for the betterment of the country. And sometimes presidents, you can debate this or not, presidents do things for what they think is the better of the future of the country. They will break the rules, find the loopholes in all these kinds of things because that's what they believe. Now, I'm not saying he made this in to explain it. I'm saying it's incredible how relative it actually is to what Obama did with the Affordable Care Act. So you see this as Lincoln pushing through because you see he shows the very angry Southern Republican senators, the very angry Southern senator who did not want this thing to pass, and they get very mad. And you yourself, when you're watching this, you have to come to terms with the fact that I'm kind of okay with him kind of breaking the rules here and doing hiring James Spader to bribe these people and do those kinds of things, and you're just like,
that was
shit.
politics at the time.
What was politics
that part
now?
was
There's
politics.
no
I was
fucking
going to say that
difference
has
now.
changed.
But I mean, it was more like that happened, and it was a very realistic thing.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. But like, that's what makes his portrayal even more amazing is that even with all of that in there, you still love what Daniel Day-Lewis is doing. You still love Lincoln. The fights he has with Sally Field, who I still think was a bit of a miscast, but they're energy as actor and actress are so powerful,
Oh, yeah.
so potent that you buy it all.
She compliments him so well when they're in the receiving line, and
Yes.
she stops the two senators that are giving him they're from the South, or they're giving him flack, but they're on some sort of committee or
Yes.
whatnot.
Yeah.
And then she's like, "Look at how the people love my husband." And it's just like, as much power as you think you have, there's actual
that out.
power.
Yeah.
So stop dicking with me, basically. But I will now humiliate you politely amongst 100 of your peers.
Yeah.
It's great.
And that's what Mary Todd, when
Yeah.
you read all the way,
Had his
that's what she's
back.
known. She was not
She was
shy
erratic.
about her
Yep.
opinions. And yes,
Yeah.
erratic. But what's also great, and I've seen Lincoln, Raymond Massey, Henry Fonda, even Sam Waterston in the Vidal's Lincoln they did on TV and NBC. I've seen every version of Lincoln there is. This is the greatest version of Lincoln that's
without a
ever
doubt.
been put
It
on
is
screen.
not even.
And you're right, Matt. From the opening scene when he's talking to that soldier on the battlefield, you're just like, holy shit. And then you're just engrossed to the whole movie.
What we've never seen before is he's a Pantheon level orator.
Yes.
Yeah.
So he used to be able to do, I love when he gives the first speech and he only has 2 lines and be like, "That's my speech." And everybody's like, "Good." But it's an honest moment, which is it was a flagpole going up or something. It was something very small, but
Yeah.
at that time the presidency still had those small tasks. This was the job of the presidency. But when he would sit down and have the small stories between soldiers and whatnot, just kind of passing the time when they're waiting on cables to come in or
Yeah.
something like that, there's the orator, there's a storyteller, there's a man that is imparting wisdom and humor and just the breadth of his knowledge to you in small clips, the story of this and the story of that. That to me is an orator, a guy that can relate any message. And I understand. It was the first time I've been drawn in and being like, that's what I always assumed Lincoln was like.
Yeah.
Like charisma without
like
trying.
It's feels like it's a lost art because now everybody has a million speechwriters
Yes.
and you can deliver them okay, but you just got the sense that then it was a cultivated talent and he was natural to it,
Yeah.
and then he understood the power of sitting there or standing there and giving that speech in a way that just captures everybody's attention in the room.
Yeah.
And makes you feel like that he's talking to you.
Yeah.
In a way that I just don't feel like we have that
He had
in the same way.
intelligent
Not like that.
simplicity. He had intelligent simplicity.
Yeah.
He knew exactly when to be, like you said, 2 lines, when to give as little as possible because he didn't have that ego to need to be the smartest person in the room.
Other times he would use his ego.
Right, when he needed it for certain things
Yeah.
to get the bigger project done, the bigger issue done. That's what he would use it for.
Now I want it now. I am the president of the United States, clothed in immense power.
In immense power.
Yeah. And you're like, it's also it's the first real true wartime president where he now gets all these powers that he's never had before. And
Right.
to some degree, the presidency hasn't relinquished a lot of those, and they only build with time. And now that they have the nuclear codes, they're kind of all powerful. It's a little scary.
Yeah.
these days.
And what he gets right too is his genuine love for the country and his incredible vulnerability at his love for this country and for the people in this country.
That's
He
the
does a great
key
job.
there. It's everybody from the lowest of the
Yep.
low to the our version of an upper class. That you always got the sense in the history books and then in this portrayal is that he cared about every single one of them.
Yeah.
And that's again feels
But-
rare.
He did it in an honest way too,
Yep.
Yeah.
because there was 2 instances where black characters came up in the very beginning when the soldier questions him, and I think later on it's like a servant or something, and she's like, "What's going to happen to you afterwards?" And he's honest.
Yeah.
He could give her this rosy outlook and be like, "I don't know. I don't know what's in store for you and your people." It's kind of like, let's deal with that when we get to it, but let's cross this first bridge together,
Yeah.
and we got to start building towards that direction.
All right.
That was my 3. What's your 3?
My 3 is Kate Blanchett in Elizabeth.
That's my number 3 as well.
There you go. Man, these movies, the first one is good. The second one is a little tough to get through, but her portrayal
She is the
amazing.
reason. These could be subpar movies, and she still would be in my top 3 because
Exactly.
this is just 1998. I sat down. You have to understand, I'm a big student of history. I think we all are
Yeah,
in
we all
certain
are,
areas.
yeah.
But Tudor England is I used to devour everything about that. And I sat in that theater as an 18-year-old, and she comes on the screen, and I was just like, that's her.
Yeah.
Completely and utterly in the vulnerability and in the gradual understanding of what it means to be queen and fighting people on all fronts and to come into your own power. And at the end, when she's like, I'm married to England, screw the rest of you. Like, it's just, you buy the journey. I am so in for her journey in that movie.
Absolutely.
Oh, it's amazing.
I was lucky enough to be studying in London in 98,
cool.
and so I saw it in London. And that was just like, whoa. It was like the double thing of it all. I'm a student of history. British history is so incredibly dense with so many different factions.
Great characters.
And,
really.
Great characters.
But someone gave me the modern history of Britain, and it was like this thick, and I'm like, fuck, this is going to be mad. And I'm holding my fingers about 2 inches from away from each other. That's how thick that book was, and I'm just like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to grasp it all. But it's amazing to read through it because it's so layered and so rich. And Elizabeth is really one of these incredible characters in the history. And this is a female queen. Like, this is a queen.
That's the thing. It's like, given the time and the War of the Roses and everything that led up to it, and her father and all the wives and the upheaval in the church at the time, is just like to have all of that stacked against you. And to still come out on top.
And to have Mary Queen of Scots sitting over there.
Just waiting for it every chance.
Having her own way in to the president. And then Raleigh, to be queen. And then Raleigh with the stuff that he pulls in the second film, Sir Wally, that Clive Owen does. All these kinds of things and Cate Blanchett does. She elevates what she does in the first film in the second film. When she walks out there with the sword, with the armor, you're just like, what the fuck am I watching? This is amazing. And it's Cate Blanchett. You know, what you see in Hela now. This is 1998, 2000, something like that with the sequel. That's 17 years ago. And yet still she walks onto a screen as Hela and blows your mind at how sexy and powerful and incredible she is. And I think and she got robbed for that fucking Oscar.
I don't want to talk about it.
Listen,
that was the Paltrow year?
Yeah, that was the Paltrow year.
And I love
one of the worst years in Oscar voting.
I will defend Shakespeare in Love to the end of days as being better than Private Ryan, but there's no way.
He's not
Pshaw, my friend. Pshaw.
I know. But there's no fucking way anything Paltrow did in that movie comes close to what Blanchett does in Elizabeth.
There's not a whole lot in that movie that you could say that about that would put it in the category that it was in. You know what I mean? That movie.
It was a perfectly
enjoyable
movie. That's the most I'll ever say about it.
It was funnish. It was funnish
both
and
insane.
I also don't love Joseph Fiennes, and he's in both movies. And I'm like,
right,
at least he's only Robert Dudley and Elizabeth.
Yeah, he's not Carrie.
He's kind of just like he's pushed aside a little bit. You got to give a shout out to Jeffrey Rush too, as Walsingham, because he's the ally she really needed because he's like you got to do the tough things. You got to crack down on the Catholics because they're sending assassins after you, and he was really her guide in the idea of like you've got to take up the mantle of your father. You've got to be ruthless to lead.
And what we talked about with other people in this list, like sometimes you can't do it the right way. You have to do its best. What's your number 3?
So that was my number 3.
That was your number 3. Okay, so what's your number 2?
2 is a punt from earlier, guys. Let's talk about it. Amadeus.
Amadeus. Wow.
Are you kidding me? Wow. This movie is endlessly rewatchable.
Yes,
it is endlessly rewatchable. I love this movie. I can start it at the very beginning or the last 5 minutes. I don't care. I'm on board. I love everything about it. It's like the idea of this child prodigy and how would he act in the first time that Salieri's meeting him, and it's this is who you choose, God, because he's devoted his life, his vow of chastity, and he's only dedicated himself to Christ and to music. This is the vessel by which you are blessing the world with your best creations, and the affront to him, he just doesn't understand. And I love that it's told from that perspective.
It's such an interesting perspective because I find that I think I like Thomas Holst?
Yeah.
His portrayal of Mozart, I think, of the two, I think is the more interesting because F. Murray Abraham is very reserved. But but it's the perspective that sells this whole thing, this idea of like what it means to be a genius and who deserves to be a genius.
Yeah.
And the depths that he's willing to go, like somehow thinking he's going to earn it, and then I'm just gonna steal it. And it's such an interesting two-pronged type of movie, and I like them each for different reasons. F. Murray Abraham won the Oscar, but sometimes I kind of think Tom Hulce should have.
It's one of those rare instances. They were both nominated.
Yes,
and usually that splits the vote, and neither one
would win.
But he somehow was so great in this.
He was, I could easily give it to both for that one.
Well, and this
I'd have to look who was, who else was in it that year and whatnot. But
and Matt, you're right. This is my father's favorite film, bar none, and which is insane. This is a man from a small town in Bolivia, from a fucking farming town in Bolivia. But for whatever
man knows
reason,
good movies, though.
He did.
Man knows good movies.
By the end of my dad's last few years, if he fell asleep in a movie, I know it wasn't a good movie. That was my dad. But if he stayed awake, like he watched he loved Braveheart from beginning to end. He was just a massive fan of it. And then he fell asleep in other movies. But like this film is the one we put on all the time. He would quote it all the time in his broken English. He would quote the whole thing about the creature. The creature had her and in his noodle and all these kinds of things. And we watch it always over and over again. So the reason it's not higher on my list is because I was looking at figures, not the overall movie. If we're doing an overall movie, I think this is
I like
my
the figure.
top 3 or 4.
I played violin for 6 years as a kid.
There we go.
Right.
I know the
It's
name Mozart.
interactive, the
there,
figure.
yeah.
And so the resonance there, and I just adore the movie.
Yeah, I
so
do
the figure
too.
to me was already historical. I grew
Yeah.
up from the age of 6 to 12.
It's the
I
only
knew his name.
classical music soundtrack that I have. Like it's just such a powerful film all around for everything that it does, and it engrosses you. And you're right. And Thomas Holtz is actually you're right. I think you're right. You can make a case
I think
now,
when I was younger,
40
I was
years
all
later.
F. Murray Abraham,
Yeah.
but like more recent, the most recent time I saw it, I was really like, Holtz is doing something
He really is.
detailed and interesting here too.
It should fail.
And it's almost like people dismiss it because he's just playing a child,
Yeah.
but there's so much more going on there that I maybe didn't appreciate when I was
But you have to
younger.
believe the intelligence behind that child.
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
That's the thing. When
That's what sells
when
it.
he comes in and he hears Salieri's like procession march, that's what's his name, Jeffrey what is playing on the
Jeffrey
harpsichord.
Jones.
Jones.
Yeah.
Jeffrey Jones.
Is playing on the harpsichord and just butchering. I mean, can't keep the time. And Salieri's sitting there trying to do a metronome by clapping. Good sire, 1, 2. Okay, let's try that again. And you have to put up with this. And he's like
Tempo.
tempo. Playing music for so many years, when somebody doesn't have rhythm, it's brutal and just like you understand the mechanics, but you need to like feel the music, feel the as it courses through you. But that Mozart walked in and memorized it, and that's I don't know if that story's true, but there's the story where the papacy had a song that they'd only wheel out like once a year, and they didn't release copy of the music, so nobody knew how it went. And it was some big piece, and Mozart heard it once and transcribed it, and now everybody knew it. And you're like, wow, they had that under wraps for like 500 years. And this guy like walked past the hall. I don't know how what exactly happened, but he only heard it once and still knew it backwards and forwards, and you're like, I don't even know how you do that.
Yeah.
How do you? It's like you're storing the information in a different fashion. But yeah, to pull off that like little, but the frivolousness, and when he laughs and he's like, ha, and he's
and then he
his
corrects it.
laugh is
Yeah.
just a.
when he adds the new
so
endings.
important.
Yeah.
Don't you think you should have
This
ended like
works
this?
better.
Yeah.
And
What
the
about
look on
this?
Salieri's face. The look on his face is just like
This motherfucker.
I want to kill
This
you.
motherfucker. And that's the only time he couldn't. He was so excited to actually meet him. Oh, it's great, that movie.
The movie is brilliant because of, as an editor, the cuts. I mean, from when he sees the landlady yelling at him and he sees the aria in his mind, just brilliant stuff like that really decorates the film. And I agree, F. Murray plays the villain. He is what he is, and when you see it on stage, because I saw it in London as well. David Suchet played Salieri, which was great. But you see it on stage, and Michael Sheen played Mozart, which was
wow.
amazing. I still have the playbill, and they both signed it
From when?
from '98. In '98, and I went to see this. And Suchet, I waited for him after, and I talked to him about it because it is so different than the film, because it is all Salieri. And then you get the occasional appearances.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it's all Salieri pretty much. And whereas in the film, they share the screen most of the time. So, but with what Holtz is doing is you see the progression of his destruction through the film, and so much so. And then still powerful, still at the end, he drives him to do the notes and do the Requiem March. Like all of it.
As the Requiem is happening,
Yes.
in different cut scenes.
There is nothing F. Murray Abraham does in that movie that comes close to what Thomas Holtz does in the last hour of the movie. Nothing. And so you can make an argument now, in retrospect, that maybe Holtz deserved the Oscar more than F. Murray overall.
I don't know. I just
Which
think
I
I
love.
think on any given day I watch it, I might choose
Yeah,
the
which
other.
is-
It's
which
kind
speaks
of,
to its greatness.
It's kind of tough. I will say, and this is probably something somewhat dangerous to say based on this entire list. It's not higher on my list because it's one of the, let's call it, least truthful of like in terms of history goes. In terms
Oh.
of Salieri, I think they got the characterizations
Marie Antoinette.
right.
Okay. Oh,
Yeah.
all right.
There's
Point-
more documentation
Point
that can
taken
back
from
up a lot of
my
what that happened.
gentleman on the side over
I'm
here.
talking about like this
Listen.
movie like basically comes out and says that Salieri killed or
Well,
was
he
instrumental
believes.
in the death. of-
He believed exactly.
doesn't say that he did.
He's carrying the guilt as he's relaying the story.
right.
Which is based on a true. That
It is.
But they weren't.
But-
There's not a lot of documentation that says that they were rivals in any way.
This is fair. That is fair.
So to take it is a very melodramatic interpretation.
That's
which
where I
is-
like.
I'm not. I mean, I get it. Dramatic license. Every single one of these movies on
But
every
from-
on these lists are doing
true.
it.
Think about it like this, though.
But-
From Salieri's perspective, he is a rival.
Yeah.
He believes he's truly a rival.
Yeah.
He is not.
He's not in
Not even close.
Mozart never
Well, yeah,
recognized
Mozart
him
never-
as a
at
rival.
all.
thought about it
But
from that
Salieri
point of view,
believes he
sure.
is just as deserving to be at the table as Mozart. And
Yeah.
just like, no. Like the history of time has basically ruled you out.
Which is why Mozart treats him the way he does.
Exactly.
At times affectionate, and other times dismissive. Because
Right. He's not thinking about him on that level at all.
no,
as a friend, sure.
Every once and again, there are moments of like a musician camaraderie between
Yeah.
the two of them, but then he's dismissive at others because he knows he has the right idea.
Yeah.
Right. And he's so much more talented.
He is.
Yeah.
It's undeniable.
Yeah.
He was never not the most talented person in the room.
While he was alive,
he was ever in.
yeah, that's probably true.
All right. So that was your number 3? Number 2.
No, that was
was
your
my number two.
It was
Number
a
2.
punt.
We already did
You
my
had
number
2.
2.
What's your 2?
So my number 2 is Malcolm X.
Okay, so it was
Okay.
punt from earlier. Okay.
Yes.
And what
Yeah.
number is that on your list?
That was
at all?
my 6.
Okay, that was my number 4. All right.
This is one of the few exceptions to what I was sort of saying earlier, in that most of my movies were like shortened, like a look at a specific time in these people's lives, where Malcolm X covers a huge span of years, and it's a very long movie, and it does the whole thing. But there is, in my opinion, no denying the charisma of Denzel Washington and this, like Malcolm X was in my history books and everything else. It was like Martin Luther King's on this side and Malcolm X is on
Yep.
this side, and they were just painted in sort of almost these very two-dimensional ways. And I love this movie because it really traces his journey from being this like swing kid and being a criminal and going to jail and meeting Baines and coming to all these ideas with the Islam and
Yeah.
Sure.
As a black Muslim.
Elijah
Yeah.
Muhammad
Elijah
and
Muhammad.
everything,
Yeah, the
and then
Brotherhood.
becoming disillusioned with that and going to Mecca himself and finding his own and forging his own path and all of that. And I think that it is so important to look at history through that more layered lens than just the like what I knew before that was not a pretty picture
Right.
painted
No.
of him, really.
Right.
And I love that this movie like gave a breath to that evolution and that journey of his. And I'm like, okay, now I get it.
Yeah.
Not to mention Denzel is
Yeah.
just unbelievable
Amazing.
in it. So I think it's one of the greatest biopics ever made, honestly.
I don't disagree with you.
And
Yeah.
so this was an easy high on my list movie.
I think this is the difference, though, of doing a small encapsulation. You have to with this because you need to educate people as to who this guy really was.
Yeah.
So, like, all I knew of Malcolm X as a kid, because this came out, what year did this come out? 95 or
92.
92?
92. Wow.
Okay, yeah. So I was 13 or something like
Yeah.
that. So all I knew was of Malcolm X is basically in my head, he was the predecessor of Farrakhan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was like, that's what Malcolm X was in like the 60s or something. And that's all I kind of really knew. It was a rough outline to see this and be like, of course, the man is more complex than what you're painting him. But
Right.
to learn that, I think you needed to show the entire arc of him. And it's so successful. It's probably my favorite Spike Lee film.
I think it's tough because you want to say do the right thing, but I think this one's more powerful.
Yeah.
And relevant.
But to see what he's capable of, too.
Yeah.
Just like, wow, you can tell a hell of a story.
in a really dramatic but not hitting you over the head
Nope.
kind of way.
I think I'm older than both of you, I think, by a few
We're all,
years.
28? We look great.
I'll go with that.
Yeah.
So for me, this came out when I was 21, 22, something like that. So for me, I started to, I read the autobiography of Malcolm X in high school.
Okay.
Because
See, I read it after the
Yeah,
movie.
I had an AP history teacher, and she would suggest books for us to read that were off the list to have discussions in class.
Sure.
And we would have voluntary after school discussion, the meetings with the teacher, so we would discuss. That's why I grew up to become such a fan of history. Like she put it inside me, but this ideas and stuff like that. So I started to understand that there was more to him. And so as you get to college, you take classes and they talk about this, they explore this. And so for me, when it was announced that Spike was doing the film, I was over the moon because I'd fallen in love with Spike from She's Gotta Have It, from School Days, and Do the Right Thing. Like this is the perfect filmmaker, because Norman Jewison was originally who was going to do it.
Really?
Yes. And he fought against it. Spike did with the studios. He went on a campaign in the newspapers saying that a white man should not be directing this Malcolm X, a white Jewish man should not be directing this film about Malcolm X.
Yeah. True.
And for once, I agree with this point of view, because this is so intrinsically a black film, a black hero, and you have to understand the complexities. You cannot do broad brushstrokes with Malcolm X.
True.
And when you read Alex Haley's biography, when you read the stuff about him, and this is what's amazing, because I have a CD of all of not all, but I have a CD of Malcolm X speeches that I will occasionally play as I drive around, because as charming as you find Denzel in the movie, Malcolm X in real life was even more charming, even more amazing, even more magnetic. Yeah, when you listen to the speeches, you are just caught up with why he's speaking about what he's speaking about. If you get past this idea, this very simplistic idea, oh, he hated white people, that's simplistic.
Right.
Yeah.
When he's still figuring out his theology, what he believes, because this is a pickpocket. This is a guy who hated himself as a black person.
Yeah.
This is a guy who dated white women. This is a guy who his father was killed by the Ku Klux Klan, who was run over by a car. His head was run over by a car, a train. They left him on a train track. His father to get killed. So there's all of this. His mom went crazy. They had to commit her, and he had all these brothers and sisters. So there's already so much to his story, and then he ends up in jail, as we see in the film. And he converts. And when he converts in such a, like that scene when Denzel walks into Elijah Muhammad's presence in the first time. And I forget the actor who, Martin Freeman, I think, who plays him. And the tears rolling down Denzel's face.
Sure.
He's so powerful because he has found where he belongs. He's found a home. And then as he becomes disillusioned by that, that's what happens when
then
we
he has
discover.
To reach in.
Yes.
He has been reaching out to find purpose and a drive, and then realizes that this is the real world, and that the only way to really find myself is to look inward. And he does that by going to Mecca.
To Mecca. He does a pilgrimage to Mecca.
And then he transforms into this beacon.
Yes.
In just an unbelievable way.
Well, and where we see him in the height of his the black being part of the Black Muslims and the Brotherhood, he that young girl comes up and says, "I want to help," and she's like, "How can I help?" By not doing anything. This is not your business. You're white. And you see that. And then the transition from when he leaves Elijah Muhammad, because Elijah Muhammad was giving him his words to say.
Right.
Yeah.
He was incredible as a speech, like we said about Lincoln, a natural orator. But Elijah was giving them words. When he went to Mecca, when he saw the disillusionment of Elijah sleeping with these young girls, he had to figure out his own voice. And when he found his own voice, then he understood that black and white can live together. So these simplistic approaches to him, these presentations of him as we're growing up, this idea that he is just against white people and he was the extreme poor, that's bullshit. It's more complex, especially when you find that Martin Luther King was cheating on his wife all the time. Who's the pure one? Who's the real noble one? No. Who's the one that stands?
It's more interesting when you get to the gray area of all of these people we're talking about. They were human. They weren't heroes. They weren't villains per se. There was so much more to all of them.
And just like you at 40, you don't feel the same way or think about things the same way you do at 30.
Right.
His journey. If he had not been assassinated, there is an entire different country that we live in.
Yeah.
Because Malcolm was finding, and Martin Luther King was, 3 years later, he's assassinated. Malcolm was finding his footing and his presence with his own people to lead them in a way that we would have been overwhelmed by in this country. And unfortunately, he was cut down. And this film really captures that, you know. And Spike does have his tricks, the whole moving thing that he has at the end. But using that Sam Cooke song is devastating and so well done. And Angela Bassett is incredible in this film, They even made Raj from What's Happening in this film. It's amazing. So, all right. Anyway, so that was whose number 2?
That was my number 2.
Okay, so then
to my number 1.
Yes.
You want to talk about potentially not historically accurate? Let's talk about it. This was my biggest flaw, and I was putting it on there. Of course. Freedom!
Damn it!
Braveheart, baby!
not having any historical truth to it.
No, there's no.
Not
He wasn't a
on my
peasant.
list.
He was landed gentry. I'll give you that.
You give me that?
I'll give
That's
you
the
that.
truth. You can't give me the truth.
Such a good movie, though. It is such a good movie. That's the thing. That's where it trumps all for me. It's like it's like the star of the movie. Man, that dude's got flaws. But the problem is I love some of his movies, 2 pieces, and I'm just like
Gibson, you're
yeah,
talking
I leave that at the
yeah.
door. I check it
Okay.
at the door.
Okay.
So within this, yes, I know Wallace, his backstory and the setup has some tremendous problems. But in the context
So he didn't do it for love, is what you're saying.
of the, I mean, partially. Partially.
Sure.
Who knows? Listen, I wasn't there. All I know is Mel Gibson one day
Neither
came
were the
across
people
this
making this
idea.
movie. Yeah.
And said, you know what? We're going to turn this guy into a star. It was like 1940s Hollywood. He found himself a star, and he made a star, and they made a beautiful movie.
Fair enough.
It is awesome. I love this movie. Forwards, backwards. I think it's got a gorgeous pace to it. The setup, like you believe that Gibson and that young girl are in love.
Yeah.
Because of the shared history of. I mean, I love it. At the gravesite, what is she like? 2 years younger, 3 years younger, and then he shows up after his absence. His uncle's taking him around the world to like Rome and all this, and taught him different languages. And he is now like 45, and she's 22. I love that in the movie. They were 3 years apart as kids, and now when they were adults, there's like a 20-year age gap here. But that's fine.
Hollywood.
Yeah.
Well, you know,
Exactly. But I believe
tough living in the sky in the Highlands.
their love and his retribution of that love. We talked about before, Gibson can display sorrow through the eyes unlike any actor I can think of. When he breaks internally, you feel it as his eyes quiver, and he's searching for meaning within his own existence, life, everything around him. It's all, he's like doing just a blank stare as he searches his soul for something, like a reason to exist anymore. And that movie does that over and over again. When Robert the Bruce backstabs him, he's destroyed.
Oh, that's one of the most incredibly moving moments in film, the betrayal.
Yeah.
Just him sitting and he cannot grasp, like he has to blink because he cannot grasp how his world once again has been fucked over. And he's been, when he just started to believe again.
Exactly.
he had allowed himself.
Found
Yes.
again. He found.
He didn't want to do it.
again.
Yes.
He'd come around.
Didn't want to put himself back out there. You know, his heart hurt.
And I love the way he slices the throat of the British guy.
Yeah, in the beginning.
Yeah.
Just passionately.
He just looks away after he does it.
Yeah.
There's no...
It's nothing. There's no meaning. This
because
doesn't
it's not
fill the
gonna bring her
void.
back. It's not going to bring her back.
No.
Yeah.
And you see it.
Yeah.
That's the thing, man. Gibson is just so, and like over and over, when he goes back after the nobleman that had betrayed him, and he takes the horse up to the guy's room and he drops the chain and he just swings the ball and caves his head in. Oh my God! Just the look on the guy's face, and they did it for lands, lands over that, and we sold you out, and we killed your countrymen, and they're standing up for an idea that you as landed gentry should have been on board with, not the fake peasant that you were. You know what? Maybe it was a con job on his part to get the people to help foster his future intentions.
Peoples. Yeah.
But that, and I love it because also the hero dies before the villain.
Yeah.
When does that happen in a movie?
It's true.
Longshanks is still alive, but he hears like the idea of freedom. He fights until the very end, and it breaks Longshanks.
I have to give Matt Nose credit. Matt Nose has made me go back and reappreciate this film, because there were times where with this film I had issues with some, like the whole thing with Sophie Marceau and him sleeping with the French queen. I'm like that kind of stuff.
But she got back at her husband
she
and
does.
her father-in-law.
It's a vehicle, right? It's never happened. There's no way he got anywhere close to sleep with her, but you get why it's...
Matt shrugging like you don't know.
Give me the De Niro shrug.
A cartoonist you don't know. Like, you don't know that? You don't know that.
But I love that she gets revenge on Longshanks and her husband by whispering that shit into his ear as he's dying. And I
the
love
baby that grows in my belly is not your own. Something like that.
So
Oh,
we're just going to sit here and listen to Matt
and he can't
like,
speak.
recite this movie.
He can't speak, and he's just sitting there, and he's got like tuberculosis or something.
Yeah.
He's coughing up a lung,
Black
and
lung.
I don't know why I don't have a chalkboard or something. I like to write down his thoughts. As I was watching that, it's like he's a fucking king. We have some sort of writing implement around here somewhere, guys.
I think, whatever your issues are with Gibson and personal or otherwise, and I respect if you do have some, it's just an incredible.
It's amazing.
His greatest performance. This is his greatest performance, bar none.
Yeah.
It's like the peak of him as an actor, and whatever happens afterwards, he can come close to it. He can maybe hit it again, but I don't think he'll ever beat it. And it's just amazing what he does in this film. So.
Like that victory speech in my head
yeah.
lives on. It's like 7 minutes long. You go back and watch it. It's like 70 seconds.
yeah, right in your mind.
It's nothing, but in my mind, it's like he was. It just rah for the troops through the board, and you go back and rewatch and be like, it's like a minute.
Yeah,
But it's so powerful. powerful.
lives very large in your
It
head.
just
And the freedom moment too. The freedom moment is incredible.
It's hard. It's a stirring
Yes.
movie.
Yeah.
Like, so you get so emotionally invested in it. History be damned, Gibson. Not going down that path, but
Yeah.
there's no denying like that. We throw the word epic around a lot, and I'm going to throw it around and for my number one. But like, this is a movie that lives up to that feeling because it's personal and emotional, but it's also big and thematic and important.
The scale of the battles.
Yeah.
And just like fire the archers, sire, we'll hit our own. We'll hit theirs too. Yeah. Like, wow.
And it's bloody and guts and like, and it feels visceral. It's not one of those, big battle sequences from, the 1960s where there's no blood,
When he
really
stands triumphant at the end of the first battle and he does that scream, it's just guttural.
That's a primal yell.
Yeah, it is. There's so much just adrenaline and testosterone and just rage flowing through him. He can't even vocalize in proper English. It's just
An absolution.
smash today.
An absolution for avenging her death. Like in that.
Yeah, that was the
there
first.
Too. That's there too.
That
when
felt
he
more
yells.
than the guy he just slit the throat of, the Duke or whoever, not a Duke, but a Lord.
Whatever. A chubby lord.
Yeah, that was my number one.
All right, so
A piece de résistance. What you got?
my number one is Ben Kingsley and Gandhi.
I knew that was
Matt
gonna be
called that to me the other day when we were talking. He was like, "Watch." He's like, I know what's coming with
you.
Roca.
I know you. It was in. I figured what is ultimately going to be her punt was going to be in the conversation. For number one.
Yeah, but what he does here is even more epic than what I think might be the number one for Rachel. And I'm not comparing in terms of better or worse. For me,
Yeah.
from my perspective, this is a film I rewatch all the fucking time. 3-hour film. I will rewatch it all the fucking time. There is something about this film that affects me on so many levels, and I don't understand. I'm not a person who studied Indian history. I don't have a lot of Indian friends. I do have a couple that I really respect and love, but I just don't gravitate to India. I never want to go visit it. There's no passion in me, but there's something about this film and the purity of the performance of Kingsley at this young age. I think he's like 22, 26, 24, something like that, right where Orson Welles is when he does Kane. And this is the only film, in my opinion, in terms of the progression of age that comes close to touching Citizen Kane as Gandhi, because it's incredible how Ben Kingsley goes from this very young, vibrant lawyer with a full head of hair who is fighting the British government to this frail, older Mahatma K. Gandhi who is walking with the white robes on and with the stick and with the sandals, and you see the progression, and it's so organic and so believable, and the film has something to say about fighting for your rights, and then once you accomplish the rights, to not get caught up in religious division that causes the destruction of everything you just fought for. And you see him fight in his own way, and you appreciate Gandhi and the nonviolence, this idea of you can fight in this way that I could never fight. I could never be nonviolent in the fight. So maybe that's part of what I respect and admire about the movie, is because of his story. And this seems very well done, and they layer the characters with richness, and the stuff that relationship he has with his wife, the relationship he has with Ian Charleson, who is in Chariots of Fire, was very hard for me to leave off this list, and the other characters that are in the movie, the guy who plays Nehru, and all the other Indian senators, the Pakistanis, the Hindus, the Muslims, all of that, and then you have that him fasting, and then you have what's her face show up later on, Candice Bergen show up later. There's so much about this film that, to me, just still resonates inside in his performance and bringing this idea of Gandhi to life. Just like we say with Malcolm X, the idea of bringing someone so magnanimous, so magnetic, so interesting, so powerful, who led a movement to liberate a country, to find the right actor to bring that to life is incredibly difficult. And the fact that Sir Richard Attenborough was able to do this is amazing. And in the Schmoedown, my first biopic question ever was, who directed Gandhi? And I just felt like that was just total kismet for me, because nobody else would have known it in the room. But I knew it because I love this movie so much. And so this is why it's my number one, because it is a film that still resonates with me. His performance still resonates with me as an actor. And the film itself about what it has to say about fighting for your rights as a human being to exist and your independence in the world. There's just so much about it. So.
Yeah.
Beautifully said. I don't have anything to add.
Wait, Matt, have you seen it yet? Because a month ago you still hadn't.
Still haven't seen it.
God damn it, no.
I haven't seen it. Listen,
Right.
I've watched like 10, 12 movies in between that time.
That's true.
I've watched other things. I just haven't had the time.
I'm gonna have to bring in the Blu-ray or give it to him on a digital copy or something.
Yeah,
All right,
just rifle me, over the link or something.
sure. All right, Rachel, let us all guess what your number one
Yeah, I
is.
think it's not going to be a surprise to anybody at this point. So you punted it from earlier,
I did,
right?
I did.
Yeah. So
Well, you're
Or you
five?
punted it. You punted.
well, you had it on your list,
Yes,
and
I
I
did.
punted. Yeah. No,
My
this
number
was this was not even a remote question for me. This is my top 3 favorite movies of all time. Lawrence of Arabia is. This is, to me, the definition of an epic film, a definition of a flawed hero, a character who wants to be a great man in his own story and is coming to terms with that in this foreign territory where he actually starts to get to know the people, and now he's becomes conflicted in like the most interesting way to me. Like, he's not just this paragon figure. He's incredibly flawed. He makes mistakes. He gets caught up in between two cultures, and he doesn't really know how to handle it. And it's ultimately a very, like heartbreaking end when he's driven away in the car, and the Arabs have essentially won, but they've just traded being, ruled by the Turks with being ruled by the British. And so, like, what did he really win?
Yeah.
And it's, he's this man who who believed in destiny and that his destiny was something great and big. And then to come out at the end, really not being sure where you belong in the history books is such like a heart-wrenching thing for somebody who believed in themselves and that idea of affecting the world and affecting history. It, to me, is just so beautiful as a character arc. And then, they just don't shoot movies like this anymore.
you're
It's
right.
stunning. It is just breathtakingly beautiful, all on location, and you get the breadth of that culture in a great way. And Peter O'Toole, like those piercing blue eyes, and it's just gorgeous. I could go on and on about this movie. I love this movie so much.
Still a crime that he didn't win Best Actor. That year. And he's never won it.
Yeah.
They gave him an honorary one
Yep.
after Venus.
He was
but
nominated
You see,
9
sometimes
times
you just
and never
take-
won.
You take for granted somebody's gift.
That beautiful.
Yeah, just like,
Right.
yeah, of course he's nominated.
Yeah.
It's like Susan Lucci, but better kind of thing. But somebody who's basically just always nominated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what they're doing. It's the opposite of Day-Lewis. He gets the nomination, he's winning.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, what makes him interesting, too, is the character of him. He is precocious at the beginning. He is cocky in a way. He's also rebellious.
They
And
don't
we
know
all
what to
have
do
that.
with him. His
Right.
superiors are like, what's with this guy?
We all have that kind of rebellious streak in us. Some of us a little bit more than others, and you see that in him, so you enjoy that. But where it leads him, initially, he has this nobility and morality of right and wrong, and he thinks he's doing the right thing, and he gets caught up in the white savior complex, which really, for a film in 62 or 60, whenever it was made, 62, it is an incredibly interesting film to showcase this white savior complex amongst the Arabs. And Anthony Quinn calls him out through the whole film. Alec Guinness calls him out through the whole film as well for being caught up in his hubris and his idea. And along the way, he causes these deaths that slowly start to erode the confidence in himself.
It eats away at him.
Yes. So when he gets sexually assaulted by the Turkish guy played by Jose Ferrer, the twisting of the nipple and all, like, he raped him. And the way he throws him out like garbage. This was a man who was riding high, but it was his hubris that thought he, as a white,
That could
blonde,
never
blue-eyed, could
happen
walk
to him.
Yeah, could walk
Yeah.
through that, and no one would catch him. He thought he was so untouchable. And Omar Sharif, who is fantastic in the film as
he's
well,
brilliant.
all of their relationship carries and then you see him. By the end, he is broken. You have the guy who's taking the pictures of him, Arthur Kennedy, the actor, and he takes that and he goes, "Oh, let me take your picture," in such sarcasm because of what he had reverence for him initially, and then he sees what he does because of his anger of being raped. He wants to destroy everything around
Yeah,
him.
and he has
And
the
blood on
they
the knife.
annihilate that village.
Yes.
and it's like you see the dark side of what this can do to you, and then you come out the other side and you go, "What have I become?"
Right.
And there's just so much mixed up in that that this is not a white knight. This is a human being who had like a complex and this idea of destiny, and then to have it all fall in on him that way is just so, like I said, heartbreaking and but riveting and just I think very ahead of its time as well in terms of the filmmaking.
He didn't have the emotional capacity to handle the results of his endeavors, right?
Yep.
Whereas Gandhi,
does?
is
On that
progressing as he gets older. He's a lawyer. He has that intelligence, that ability to negotiate. He becomes the right leader for these people. But
One uses their head, one uses their heart.
Yeah. Exactly.
And Gandhi's also built up over the course of a lifetime.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Whereas this happened so quickly for him, and that's why the older people step in. Claude Rains steps in, Alec Guinness steps in, and he says, "The young men will do what it is time for the old men to negotiate." And it's just so great, and it's a film that resonates. Knowing that I didn't know it was one of your top 3 favorite films, so this is something we will explore further as we go along as friends. All right.
That's it.
That's our lists.
There it is.
Well, you guys, this has been an incredibly long episode, and now has it?
No, I mean we could sit here in kibitz for about
I don't know if we're going to be able to take it in
30 minutes on the dot, and we could break the record.
All right,
Well,
we got now.
how
We
are
put
we
the
going
list
to come
together.
up with
Yeah.
this top 10?
This is incredible.
Well, okay, so I was sitting there thinking about that for a second. So you two have your number 1. I don't have it.
Yes.
2 of you have your number 1.
Yes.
I don't have it.
Okay.
Nobody has my number 1.
What's your number 1 again?
Braveheart.
Right.
Nobody has his number 1.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
true.
nobody has
Gandhi.
Kingsley.
And nobody has yours.
You have we all have Amadeus. I have that at my 2.
Mine's at 9.
Where's yours at?
Mine's at 8.
Okay.
Oh no! Wait. Mine's at 6.
What do we have in common that's better ranked than that between the 3 of us?
Do we have all Malcolm X?
Yes.
I have it at 4.
6.
Put Malcolm X as number 1? We all have it, and we all have it
Wow.
fairly high.
Okay.
I'm fine with that.
Who's banging today? Do you remember?
I think it's me this time.
Okay, so I write.
Yeah.
Okay. I will position this on my.
Yeah, that would make sense. Malcolm X at number 1.
Okay.
Do we have anything that beats Amadeus for 2?
In terms of all 3 of us having
Yep.
it? Don't.
Because we got Frost Nixon in common.
Downfall.
Downfall. I can't.
But that's
give
really,
number
I
2.
can't put
Not
it
2.
2 either.
2.
I love it, but it's not going to be number
and I got Downfall at 10. You have it
I
at
have it at
10,
10.
and you've got it at 7 or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
does that mean
Amadeus would then be 2. So now then I think your 3 would probably be Lawrence of
Lawrence of
Arabia.
Arabia, since we both have
Yeah.
it?
Okay.
And then after that, you want to fight? You want to fight Gandhi versus Braveheart?
Well, no, because
We also, both you and I, have Elizabeth at 3.
right,
Oh, okay.
But Matt should get representation.
right. No,
Yeah.
in the
you're right.
top 3.
Lawrence of Arabia. So we have Malcolm X, Amadeus, Lawrence of Arabia, and then
True. Well, it's between us for next thing. Either you get Gandhi or I get Braveheart. So we both get our number 1s in this. Yeah.
all right, Braveheart, fine. Only because these other things have happened. Kristen Smith.
I don't know what the
lock
other things
it
are.
down. I'm giving in here.
I don't know what the other things are, but it makes it easier to put this list together. Otherwise, we're going to be here
did
for
all
hours.
3 of us have? Well, no, because we had Lawrence of Arabia. You didn't.
Correct.
So you
So
should be the
that's-
next one to get something next. That's how we do it, Kristen Smith. God
Right,
damn
okay,
it.
I love it. So you just created a
Braveheart
second
4.
justification for relenting.
Damn right.
That hurt that bad.
I
Huh?
don't want to give in to. I think it's ridiculous, but I.
There is no giving in. You just make a list.
I accept what the situation. Is that
Just
how you
make a
approach
list.
it? Is that how you approach it?
That's how I do today.
All right, De Niro. All right, so then number 6 is what?
What do we have? Do we have?
That
we
has
have
to be Elizabeth, because we both had
Oh,
her
yeah.
at 3.
at 3.
Right.
Okay.
What about Lincoln?
Oh yeah. Where do you have that?
both had
I have
it.
Lincoln at 2.
I got it at 3. I think that chart's higher than the 2 of you together.
The ladies,
we would
gotta
go
get
Lincoln next.
Yeah, we gotta get some
representation.
ladies up.
Well, I would say she would probably come next unless we want to go downfall.
Yeah, no, I think Elizabeth can come next.
Okay.
And then,
We all have downfall.
yeah, so maybe put that next.
Okay.
And then you and I had Patton,
Yes.
We have Frost Nixon.
and we have Frost Nixon.
Wow. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So those. Shit.
All right. Where do you have Frost Nixon? I got it at 5.
7.
Where do you have Patton and Patton?
I have it at 4.
Have we put Downfall? Have we put in Downfall?
It should be number 8.
What about
downfall.
Amadeus? We put it 2.
Yeah.
A 2. Yeah.
Okay. And Patton is next.
Well, it
I
depends.
think-
Where do you have Patton?
I have it at 8.
And I have it at 4. And then me and you have Frost Nixon at
5 and what?
7.
So probably go Frost Nixon, then
and
Patton.
Patton.
Because it rates higher between the 2 of us than between the 2 of you for Patton. That's just the way. That's the way of the world, baby. That's just the way of the world.
I should have put Patton higher. Had I known he was going to pull this, I'd have put that.
There's no pull this. That
It's
is.
making the top 10.
Doesn't
Yeah.
it make sense as we're going
No.
through this? You were fine when it
Patton is
benefited
better than Frost
Elizabeth.
Nixon.
I agree.
Miles better than Frost Nixon. Patton is 10. That's a crime. All right, here we go.
All right, I was set up for the banging.
Yes, sir.
Let's hear that sweet, sweet falsetto, my friend.
Okay. Tell me when you're ready.
You go right ahead.
Okay. The top 10 historical figures in film, yeah.
At number 10.
George C. Scott in Patton.
At number 9.
Frost Nixon.
I feel like Andy Kaufman on the bongos over here. At 8.
Downfall.
At number 7.
Kate Blanchett in Elizabeth.
Coming in at number 6.
Daniel Day-Lewis in Lincoln.
Now, starting our top 5 is...
Ben Kingsley, Gandhi.
At number 4.
Braveheart with Mel Gibson.
In the 3 spot.
Lawrence of Arabia with Peter O'Toole.
Our number 2 movie is...
Amadeus.
And finally, our number 1 historical figures in movies is...
I Am Malcolm X. Malcolm X! Wow. This is a very powerful list of films.
Could have gone a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
I'm curious. Can I know what some of your honorable mentions were?
Sure, Matt had like 30.
I really. We don't have to go through all of them.
They all, like a bunch of them got disqualified.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, Man on the Moon. It's a celebrity and...
Yeah.
I had a Chaplin.
Oh, yeah.
as a
Chaplin, yeah.
possibility.
Yep. Yeah.
Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid.
I had that. I had Jake LaMotta in Raging Bull. Robert De Niro
Yeah.
does. I also had Braveheart on the
I
side
have
list.
Patton.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Schindler's List, but it's just like a...
Yeah.
I didn't know who Oscar
I didn't
Schindler
know who it was
until that movie.
beforehand.
Yeah, exactly.
I was sort of the same way.
I put Brana and Henry V.
Okay.
I had like A Man for All Seasons. And
Oh, yeah.
The crap.
That's a
what
great
is
choice,
it?
Man for All Seasons.
Bubba Hotep, guys, for your favorite Elvis.
Oh.
I just wrote it down. I was like, yeah, why not? It never had a shot in a million years. And I was like, why not? I'll just throw that on the
The
side.
Lion in Winter was another one for me.
Peter O'Toole in there.
Yep.
He's fantastic.
And I was trying to think of like the best depiction of JFK, and I was like 13 Days.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Probably
that's the best.
would have been the best one.
What about People versus Larry Flint?
Yeah.
I didn't know who Larry Flint was till I saw the movie.
Oh, I knew the name. He was like
Okay.
the dirty Hefner.
Yeah,
Right.
it's like the Flint.
That's what I knew him as.
Publications.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I flirted with Doc Holliday.
Yeah, I wondered. I wanted to do a Western really
Mm-hmm.
badly, which is why I ended up going with Assassination of Jesse James. But like, yeah, I mean, all the depictions of Doc Holliday and Wyatt Earp, you could pick
Yeah.
from any one of
Wyatt Earp
them.
or Tombstone
Yeah.
or Gunfight OK Corral,
Sure.
which Kirk Douglas does.
Yep.
Victor Mature, My Darling Clementine with Henry Fonda. So there's so many different. Sometimes I think Matt looks at me and he goes, "Shut the fuck up!
I was
Shut the fuck up with all your knowledge of Western."
Trust me, I was in my head about something else. I was having a thought while listening to you.
Meaning he
just
was
drifting off.
blocking you out.
Yeah, exactly.
And thinking
Just
his own
drifting off.
thought.
No. It was show related. Thank you very much. I was not elsewhere. I was present, but also thinking about other things that
Like,
we're
we
working
get it,
on.
Outlaw. We get it. Shut up. But no. Yeah, I thought about it, but none of them like resonated enough for me to put them in the list that in comparison to the list that I had. You know, none of them really did. I mean, French Connection's possibly. Popeye Dole's a real person, but you didn't know about it until you watched the movie.
Yeah.
Right. Those kinds of things. So yeah. So
Yeah.
there's. And I had Angela Bassett in here for that. I was
What's
really.
Love?
She almost got
Yeah.
into 10 for What's Love got to do with it because she's a historical figure in this way that like
She was a cultural figure.
Yes.
There's a
Yeah.
lot of
Yes.
cultural. I was thinking like a Marilyn Monroe thing, like My
Yeah.
Week with Marilyn.
Yeah.
would probably.
Oh, you do
have
Walk
topped
the Line.
list.
You could do Ray.
You
could do-
Absolutely. On any of this sports movies.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
Ali I wrote on the side. And I was
Yeah.
like, meh. But it's not one of my... I like it, but it
Yeah.
just doesn't rise to the level as these others for me, I guess.
Miracle.
Yeah.
there's a
Oh
number
wow!
of things.
Yeah, absolutely.
But are those people really historically significant?
Exactly.
Ali is to me, but
Yes.
I think you could almost do it better, even though Will's was really good.
Will's performance was good. The film was not.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
the problem I have with that. But yeah.
He's such an amazing character in the film's like, it's good.
Yeah.
Well, this has been a fun list. This has been a fun show.
Yeah, no, I love listening to you guys. I mean, I yell at you from my car an awful lot.
Good.
But
That's what I want.
But I figured that is part of the whole thing.
All right.
Yeah, how
so
could
it
you
was
leave this
fun to do
offer?
this.
You like that turd? Oh, I don't trust you at all. Like, yeah. That's the beauty of an opinion show.
Yes,
We're both
exactly.
wrong and right simultaneously.
Right.
That was Christian used to say when we first started doing Top 10. Christian would say, I don't know how many times I'd think about throwing things at my radio, listening to you guys on the first few episodes because it would drive him nuts what we leave off and leave on and whatever. But we must be doing something right. So many people enjoy listening to us talk about these things, and so one of those, and that's what's so great about film is the idea of like, what? You're crazy, and this is what the show really encapsulates, and I enjoy that. So it's nice to know that you get upset at us as you listen to this
all the time. But it's great. I love your topics because they keep the door open for different interpretations, and so that we can all come up with lists, which feasibly could be 30 films for this, and then to come together. And like I said earlier, I'm ecstatic that you guys had Downfall. And I literally was putting it at my number 10 spot, and they're gonna think I'm crazy.
Yeah, that's a great, like, if you're gonna spend that time with them as the ship is sinking. What happens there? It's a great film.
And I'm sure there's a lot we're leaving off. So like, let us know.
There's so many.
Which ones are like, you guys have done such a great job on the Facebook group of commenting with your own lists, which I've really enjoyed reading and hearing your thoughts and anger and frustration and also joy at the ones we include that maybe you've been championing to your friends and you thought no one else had seen, and we do that. And so it's great to hear that we also do the positive and the negative of reactions when you listen to our show. So
yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing you guys' lists at home and interacting with that kind of stuff because I love this. This is why I'm so excited to be a part of the Schmoedown and Collider, and having met you guys, because I can talk. I could do this all night, that kind of thing. I've met people that will do it too, and then the fans are, as well, like they're film fans first, and then follow us so that we can have these conversations. So that's part of the greatness of all of this, and it's far less stressful doing this than playing in the Schmoedown. I'll say that much.
Well, I don't know about that. Some weeks when I'm making these lists, I'm like, I don't even know what the fuck I'm doing.
This is I can vouch for that.
Yeah.
There are times Matt shows up super frustrated.
Yeah, just like I got 7 for sure, and there's like 17 movies now vying for those last 3 spots. How do you do this?
I literally like wait until like the mics are on and you're going, and you'd be like, whatever you blurt out first of those. It's like, all right, that's my number 10.
I've kind of done that.
Yes.
I've kind of done that. Just been like, I didn't know until right now. Boom, this is what it is. Yeah. I'm just committed to it.
I've definitely rearranged as a show has gone on.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Hearing Matt's...
Exactly, and you start to reevaluate how you view things, and you're like, you know what, I'm going to bump that down a couple and pick that up. And I've done it as soon as we end a show before. I walked away going, I think I screwed up the order on that, and, criticize yourself over everything.
Like, that's why I'm going to be mad at Roca for having Patton too low, because it should be our number 9, not our number 10.
I like that our criticism is of ourselves and your criticism is of him. That's beautiful. That is beautiful.
Listen, welcome to our relationship and friendship. As Rachel's always criticizing me.
I wish I could do that. Damn it, I'm pissing myself. Fuck you. Fuck you. Fuck everybody else. This isn't my fault. Screw it.
I had it at number 4.
Yeah. I know. Don't let the crusher fool. She ain't as sweet as people think. She's a very competitive person.
When it comes to ranking movies.
That's right. Outlaw versus Crusher.
Definitive opinion.
Could have happened. We were one letter away from that happening. And I would have beat her.
Please.
I didn't see.
If Sam beat her, I could have beat her. Yeah, go ahead.
Sam beat him.
Damn
so
it.
I don't think that's how that works.
Sam lucked into a victory. He didn't beat me. Go ahead, yes.
Sometimes that's how it goes.
I know.
Luck plays a factor.
It does.
Whether people want to admit it or not, it plays a factor. It wouldn't be fun in a game. True. You gotta give underdogs a chance. You've got to give it that dramatic, who knows what's going to happen next flair. That's part of the fun. It just sucks when you're on the losing end of it.
It really does.
When you feel like it's fixed, you're like, what the fuck is this question?
Yeah.
What is this question? If you just want to kick me in the balls, you can just do that while I'm at home, and I don't have to drive through traffic and spend hours here. If you just want to do that, you want to make me feel bad, we can figure out other ways to do this as opposed to wasting my time and making me feel bad. Yeah, there have been a couple where I'm just like, man, go fuck yourself. But then there are other ones who be like, I know I should know that answer. This is such an easy question. Why am I blanking? So it goes both ways.
I hate those worse. If I don't know it because I haven't seen it, I'm sorry. I am not upset that I didn't know the question for
You're not a
She's Out of
machine.
Your League. I'm like, I don't need to see that movie. I don't care about seeing that movie, so I didn't know who the female lead was. I don't care. Yeah. I do care when it's, fucking the BFG, and I know it, and I can't get it. And, okay, I'm moving on. I promise.
You missed the BFG question?
I did.
What was the question?
It was in which Steven Spielberg film stars an orphan named Sophie.
Oh. I wouldn't have gotten that.
I ended up going Schindler's List. It just popped into my head, and I should have gone multiple choice. I would have forced Sam into his 5-pointer, and who knows where we would be. But we can't play that game because what if with the Schmoedown sucks.
See,
I was really hoping the question was like, what big friendly giant Spielberg movie is an acronym?
You gotta give me
And you're like, fuck, what is that?
Come on.
Shit.
I thought the question was who played the BFG in BFG.
Oh, Mark.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
I would have gotten that.
Oh, that you would have gotten. Okay.
Steven Spiel who directed. Shit. Which guy was it? Yeah.
Spiels and Steen.
Spielbago.
Bago. Son of a bitch.
Who was it? Yeah, but there are other ones. We had one against Team Action, and you were like, "Oh, the fuck is that?" I was like, I knew it instantly. The Jennifer Lopez. Like,
Yes.
just stuck out. I was like, "It's Jennifer Lopez. Don't worry about it."
Oh my God, you were
It's just one of those
amazing.
random ones. It's just like it's there. That Diane Lane, him. I know those three are in it.
I couldn't believe you knew it. I really could have.
I've seen it. I've only seen it once.
Oh my God! That's
But it
even
just
more
like it
amazing.
stuck out of like it was early J-Lo,
Yeah.
and it was still like I'll watch Robin Williams do anything, no matter how schmaltzy it is. Like Bicentennial Man, I got a soft spot in my heart for that movie.
Hey.
It's really bad.
See, that's
So,
what I was.
he's
moving.
hoping to spin Robin Williams at some point. 'Cause
Yeah,
that is
it's
not
on-
nobody's landed on
It's
it
on the
yet,
category.
though.
It's on the wheel.
It's on
Yeah.
the wheel.
I know a lot
That
about.
one scares me.
I know a lot about Robin.
Oh, there's really
I feel like there are like gaps. Like
there are.
you know,
If
and-
you do the RV or whatever the hell, I didn't see
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
He's got a period where it's like the Tim Allen Old Dogs or
Yeah.
Travolta Old Dogs.
Oh,
It's just
boy.
like Travolta with the Last Kiss from Berlin or whatever the fuck the next one is going to be. Yeah, what facial hair and hairdo are you going to have this time, bud?
I'm good with Robin Williams up until that time. Patch Adams, that whole time.
Oh, I got you through that.
And then when exactly.
Yeah.
And then when he comes back with Goodwill, I'm good. And then when he disappears a little bit in those mid 2000s with RV and those things,
Yeah.
I'm not. I
Man
can't
of
get
Those
on
shouldn't
board.
be in the
No,
mix. That's
One
just not
Hour
fair.
Photo, I know.
Yeah.
Oh, well,
Which is
yeah.
great.
And it's
yeah.
Which is really
what
good.
Insomnia.
Insomnia is fantastic.
Oh.
Yeah, when he was still excellent in
Yes.
that time period, you still saw it. It's just he put out a lot of schlock.
When he was willing to explore, going against type and playing
Exactly.
evils.
Nobody
Evil
would have
villains, right?
expected him to
Yeah,
play
which was
characters
good
like
in
that.
I love it. We are trying to break the record now from.
No, I'm sorry.
Is that what we're doing?
No. It's just like it kind of stumbled into. I just
We're
realized,
going
like,
for it.
you know
You're
what?
going down.
I mean, we're not.
We should stop. This is 9:40. I gotta go home,
I know.
man.
It's almost Roka's bedtime.
I'm
We
still
talked
gonna
about
edit
this.
a piece.
Dude, he turns into a pumpkin here real soon.
Grumpy
real
brown
soon.
pumpkin.
And we
that's
have
for
the
damn
long ride home.
sure. Yeah, we do.
You know, we live in the same neighborhood, so it's like, I got to go south of the hill. Although the traffic
this time of
better
night, you'd be
now
fine.
is
We should
better
go
than it
in
was
25
when we got
Yeah,
here.
that's true.
should be fine.
Oh, L.A.
Oh, so-
I never
yeah.
spent so much time in Burbank as I did since I started
Yeah, the
working with
Schmoedown.
you people at Collider.
Yeah.
What? Why am I in Burbank so much?
True.
Anyway,
What do we want to tell people, Matt?
Where can we find you?
Yeah, where can you?
I am on Instagram and Twitter at Rachel J. Cushing, so I'm always, available to chat. And if you want, you can follow me and my 200 fans in my Fellowship of the Crusher Facebook fan group if
Yes.
you're into the Schmoedown and all that stuff. And we talk a lot about movies. I post in there all the time, and we just, banter about our favorite, usually nerdy movies because,
Yeah,
I'm a big nerd.
You should make like the login, like they need a password to get in. It's like the Elven or Elvish for Crusher. Well, if you can figure out the
Hey, if
equivalent
somebody
of that.
can figure out what that is and you want to write in, I will give you a shout out for that one.
something boring, I'm sure.
Oh, shut
yeah.
up.
Like this
Outlaw,
film. Yeah.
please. That's done.
I'll probably lose to her one time we play
Oh,
each
it's
other on a
gonna
Lord of the
happen.
Rings movie. It'll be a Lord of the Rings question, and I will. smack
you
The
myself.
didn't
stars
realize
will
it.
align on that day.
Exactly.
Or somehow I know that 5-pointer in some miracle, and I beat her that way, which will make her hate me for the rest of the time.
Yeah, good luck with that. I'm
Yeah, I
pretty
don't
sure
think
she's going to
it's gonna
smoke you. And you're going to, you're not going to like that.
Pippin and Mary, right? I don't know which one's which.
Yeah.
I don't know who plays who. I know one of them's in Lost. That's all I know. Yeah, please, if you're in the top 10 Facebook group, if you're in the Outlaw Nation Facebook group, please go and join Rachel's Facebook group as well. She's fantastic and she's so much fun to talk to about movies and things of that nature. And life. Rachel's a really cool person, so you'll
I'm
have
good
a
at
good time.
life,
I mean,
sometimes.
she's terrible taste in films, but she knows
All right,
a lot
right.
about everything else.
To the top of her list seemed like a lot of things you love, and I love that you're criticizing that.
Yeah, I'm surprised she didn't find a way to squeeze Lord of the Rings in there. Some historical figure from Lord of the Rings.
It's prehistory.
Bilbo lived.
Before we
Yeah.
all wrote it
There were
down.
Bagginses.
It's called Middle Earth.
Did I ever tell you this? I want to say one more thing. I dated a person earlier this year who believes 1,000% that
This ought to be good. I love this setup.
I'm
You know what I
already
mean?
scared.
I love this.
She was beautiful. Really, I was surprised that she was single. She was just so.
It's building up even more. This is great. What did she believe in? This
We
is
had,
so
we
good.
had a great, like, a first date was fantastic, and then the second date was really nice. And the third date, which is when it usually happens, you start to open those doors of who you really are. And I stayed over. She made me dinner, which was really nice, spaghetti dinner. We had sex.
This
was
is going to be
great.
so good. What is it?
We
What
got
is it?
It's a lot of preamble.
It is.
We got high.
Did aliens fake the moon landing and really kill JFK? Like, what
Let's
is?
talk about it. We were getting high watching the moon go down, and she told me, she's like, I feel like I need to say this early in dating situations because I'm starting to like you, and like I want to make sure this is something that's not going to be a problem
Note
down the
that
road.
she waited until after sex.
Yeah,
to do
well,
this.
sure.
Hoping she had him hook, line, and sinker.
Should have done it before. But like she said, I want you to. I believe that there are civilizations in the middle of the earth. Like she believes that civilizations exist on Earth, and the moon is a ship, and that there are people who live on the moon, like civilizations that live on the moon that we don't. That the reason we've never gone back to the moon is because we never really landed on the moon, and that the moon is a ship. And so, but she believes there are people who live by the core of the earth, like there are civilizations. And I said.
Yeah, no, I really want to know what you said.
What did you say? What did you say? Trying to talk to a crazy person. Let's hear this.
People who know John Roca know that I'm not a speechless person. Literally,
Nothing came.
Speechless. Nothing came. This is what came. My mouth went. I had nothing to say because I was like really liking her, and then she said this, and I was like. And she's a sweet person, and she's not crazy in any way, shape, or form, like outwardly crazy. She works with pregnant women.
She's a sweet person until the mole people get here.
Yeah, well, exactly.
And then she turns into a Hellcat. Fucking slicing heads, you know what I mean? She's here to protect humankind. She saw, what is it, the fucking Wells time traveler, where there's now a society on top and a society on bottom. The society
Time
on
machine,
top.
the time machine.
Yes, thank you. It's just a food source. Oh, man. That's great.
She was sweet.
That's like homeless crazy.
I know,
But wouldn't you follow it
It
up
is
with
crazy.
like I want to know, how does one come to believe said thing? Like where did you hear
You're
this?
trying to assign a logical order to this. Hold on. You don't hear the moon is a ship and you go, what else you got? What else you got? The moon is a ship. That's a new one. I've heard mole people. I've heard mole people. So where does it go? Where does it go? Does it have a fuel that it runs on? Is there like a fucking ethereal wind that it travels on?
She believed that there were species, alien beings who came to the, and we are like they created us. They popped. It's here. I mean, there was all of it, and she runs like she does this thing. She has a business where she creates molds of pregnant women come in and they sit and they play. She does plastic molds for them.
Perfect.
And she's friends with a number of famous actors, which I was really surprised by. Like she showed me her pictures.
I don't know.
Like,
Actors are a little
insane.
weird.
Yeah,
they might believe in something like this. Some of them, anyway.
But she has these incredible books about theology and philosophy and how to live your life in a great positive way. And then this and I went out with her again one more time.
You kept trying
to try to.
You're a good man,
I was like,
John.
can I come to terms with this?
You're a good man.
I don't know.
You're a good man. You're a better man than I.
I just wanted to give it a chance to see if maybe there's. I was like, look, I'm getting old and I'm getting on in years, and maybe I can live with this if it doesn't affect me. And then I started thinking, well, if we had children, and she talked about that she wanted to have kids, I was like, yeah, I can't raise them. Can they believe there's people living in the middle of the earth? I just can't. By the earth's core, I just can't.
Oh, don't you want to hear those stories though that you tell a child about the moon is a ship?
Well, she learned from her parents, because she was raised in a commune.
Oh, okay.
That explains a lot.
Yeah.
There's the answer to your
There's my
question.
answer.
Yeah.
So she learned this from her father and from her mom, and her mom separated out. But her
man.
father really kind of told. And she said, and I said to her before we went out on the fourth date, I said to her, I'm having a hard time with this, but I want to understand you. Will you send me there's websites? And she's like, oh, I'm so happy you asked. And then she sent me the websites, and I looked the web, and they look like a crazy person created these websites.
Old GeoCities.
Yeah, old It was all of this Earthlink. It was just weird all around, and I just was like, fuck, I can't do it.
I feel it's impertinent to ask was the sex was that good though, right? Like if you're willing
You
to
went
go,
on a 4th date.
yeah, if you're willing to go, well,
She was fantastic.
yeah, maybe the
And we
more
had
people.
a nice simpatico. It was a 45-minute set. Like we had simpatico.
Yeah.
It was really nice.
Well, you know.
I got no complaints.
There
But
had to be there are numerous parts of a compelling reason as to why you would
Yes.
say let's try.
yes. Well, and she was sweet. She really had a very sweet nature, and she did not radiate crazy in any way,
Yeah.
shape, or form. That's why I could not speak
There
to
was,
it because
there
I
was
couldn't
no
believe it.
reaction.
I couldn't
Yeah.
believe it.
There couldn't be.
I couldn't. Like
No, you're not denigrating her. You're just
No.
Yeah, not at all. Look, it's respectful. You didn't say her name. And
no,
you're
of
not
course not.
disparaging her character thereafter. You're just like this. She believes this, and I can't rectify.
No,
You know.
I really tried. I really did. Try
Well,
that.
God bless you.
Yeah.
You hear that kind of crazy, and I kind of walk away.
But there are societies that believe this shit out there in the world. Like they really believe there are people who live in the middle of the earth or in
And,
the by the
and
earth's
they would
core.
probably argue, why is that any weirder to believe than anything we believe in the Bible?
Exactly.
It's true.
Yeah. In the Bible
It's
or
true.
any other any religion, it's true.
I mean, the mole people is.
That's
You know.
where Matt draws the line.
Well, the other two, like both of these, there's a molten core of iron that is just massive and superheated, and we have a ton of science to back that up. So
well,
you can-
she
you
has
can go find
science
that.
on the websites that back up that people could.
Science in crayon
quotation
doesn't count.
marks.
Yeah, exactly. In quotes and italicized and
in crayon.
yeah,
Genius.
fucking doesn't count. Doesn't count. I saw something online where some woman said that she was at a stoplight and this guy pulled up next to her, or maybe they were at a parking lot or something like that. And she had an anti-vaccination bumper sticker.
Oh.
And he's like, roll down your window. And he's like, just saw your bumper sticker. I'm so glad you're out there. I'm a former. And she's recounting the story.
Yeah.
And the story is 3 pages long.
Oh my God!
Where the guy,
How's this stoplight this long?
this is exactly, and this lady recounts the entire thing of what he said, and it's this banana, just all over, and then this in 1953, and of course she's putting what he says in quotes.
Yeah.
These detailed and sometimes with complex names. Do you remember all this? And at the end, he's just like, so thank God you're out there, spreading the good word. And she's like, yeah. And then just ends it like that. And you're like, that is the craziest thing I have read in so long, that you created this delusional reality in hopes that you can influence people not to vaccinate their kids. Like, oh my God. Thank God for Facebook.
It passes the time.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that's a perfect way.
We're
to
only a
end
couple
this
minutes
episode.
shy, the record,
No,
guys.
we gotta-
We're only a couple minutes
Can't get
shy.
the audience used to a 2.5-hour episode every week, man.
That's true, but now I feel like we're denying her the shot at the title.
Dude, damn right. End it right now.
All right.
End it right now.
We've never been
Next
aware
time
before.
Jason and I are coming in and taking over, and then we're just going to sit here for 4
Oh,
hours.
I'd like to see you try. I'd like to see you try. From my cold, dead hand, will you pry this microphone?
But thanks to everyone who's been sending such incredible comments and being so positive about the Top 10 show and becoming patrons. We've really enjoyed that, and I hope you enjoyed our first Thunderdome. I think we were a bit rusty on the Thunderdome listening to the episode.
Yeah,
in
but we'll get
retrospect,
back into it.
But we will get into the rhythm just like we did with the Top 10 show. So, but we are looking to do more and more things, and those of you who have donated who are Boss Hog. I sent emails out to all of you to submit your topics. A few of you responded. Look for that email. It's been sent from the Top 10 Patreon
next
email. So
next week should be our first one.
yes, which we will announce.
Yeah, we'll announce it.
Yeah.
When you'll find out about it when you find out about it, when you always do. We're not going to announce it beforehand.
Exactly.
But the person that won will know, obviously.
Exactly. And Matt is being very active on the Patreon page, so there's stuff for us.
Trying to put things up there.
Right. Almost every day.
Pictures
So
of the guests and putting up like poll winners and stuff like that. And the functionality is pretty good. I wish it had a couple different things on it, but maybe it does, and I just
We'll
haven't
get
found
there.
it yet.
We'll get there.
Yeah. But anyway, thanks to everybody that has donated. It means the world to us.
Yep.
We hope you enjoyed Thunderdome. We have some more ideas that we're working on, but slowly piecing this together. And we appreciate you guys, coming along with us, giving us the time to figure this out as we go. We're only a month in. We're already returning a nice little bit so
We
far.
are?
It's not bad.
We could find someone to manage it.
Not bad.
That's right. It's not bad.
But anyway, so
we
if you
want
want to,
$5,000 a month, that's what we want.
No,
we're getting there.
we'll build.
We'll build.
We'll build.
I know you all have $12 in your pockets. I'm just saying.
Shit, $1.
I feel like a swagger.
$1.
I'm saying that's 12 months. $1.
Yeah,
Just do the
$12
12 all at once.
If we get half of you, shit,
If we
that's
get-
fantastic. If we get half of you to give $1 a piece. You know what I mean? Shit, I'd have paid for your Uber to get here if we gotten that.
There
Don't
you
even
go.
worry about it. Just leave your car. We'll Uber you over. It's not a problem. But
Yeah.
yeah. So anything that we do with Patreon, we also put that on our Facebook page, which is facebook.com/groups
Yes.
/ the Top 10 Show with the number 10. So we're interactive there and also on the Patreon page. You can follow me on Twitter, Instagram at Mattnost, MATTKNOST.
Yeah, and you can follow me at The Rocha Says, TheRocha. SAYS. See all the and guys, thank you so much for listening to us on the SK Plus podcast channel. So many great shows on this. Don't forget about Don't Be a Beardo, The Wanger Show, After Schmoedown, Schmoedown Rundown, The Meaning of, the new one with Ace and RB3, which is great. There's so many, and Critically Acclaimed is now on the SK Plus podcast
brand new.
channel.
Welcome to the family.
Welcome, Bibiani and Whitney. Try not to choke in the first round. I'm joking. I'm joking.
He cannot help himself, Kenny.
Former horseman. I'm sorry. No,
He is who he is.
No.
He is.
It's
True enough.
I listened to the first
We love
episode.
The Outlaw.
Yeah,
We
that's
do.
right. You love the Outlaw. They hate John Roca, but they love the Outlaw. Listen, I listened to the first episode of Critically Acclaimed, and I have to say, all kidding aside, I really enjoyed it.
Those two put together a great podcast.
They do.
So,
William and
yeah.
Whitney have incredible chemistry. They're not, they're fun to listen to, and you're not going to be disappointed when you listen to them. So welcome to the family, boys. And this has been great, and thanks so much for listening, everybody. Matt, anything else we want to tell them?
No, thank you, Rachel, so much for coming
thank
on.
you,
You're
Rachel.
awesome.
No, thank you. This was
You're
a
amazing.
lot of fun. I'll be
You-
back, guys.
And you crushed it, Killer.
Oh, so you don't want on Rushmore, but now you're just saying you're coming back as a guest.
I'm not going to wait for an
I guess you're
invitation.
getting a
I'm
little
just
too
gonna,
cocky.
I'm going to crash.
I like this.
Okay.
No, she's saying she's going to come back. She's not going to say she's going to be on Rushmore. I like that she
I know.
wants to earn up to get up there.
But I'm just saying, guests just calling their shots now. It seems to be a thing.
Oh, well.
I don't like it. Before she was blaming you for her
That's
error.
true, it's true.
And now she wants back on the show.
Well, maybe we're
easily.
making them feel too comfortable, maybe. Maybe we're doing too much.
Although, so long as you keep attacking him, you can come on whenever you like.
I've got my
Yeah, it's fine. If I'm aces in your book, then guess who's my favorite?
Got it.
Yeah, exactly. I'm
There we
easy
go.
like that.
All right. Well, on that note, thanks, everybody, for listening, and we will see you all next week on the
Bye-bye.
Top 10 Show.
Bye.